Today, we're going to be talking about some of the most frustrating FNAF fan games the community has ever seen. From brutal difficulty to mechanics that constantly test your patience, these games have pushed countless players to their breaking point. Some of these are incredibly fun, but they can also be incredibly infuriating, so let's get into it. What is really the hardest Five Nights at Freddy's game of all time? Hopeless Pursuit? One Night at Frogger's? Who really knows for sure? But I think when people think of that question, they tend to think strictly about max modes, which I think is a little disingenuous. I think there's a big difference between the hardest FNAF game and the hardest max mode. For example, I think FNAF 1 is much harder than FNAF 4, but FNAF 4's max mode is undoubtedly harder than FNAF 1's max mode. So saying FNAF 4 is harder than FNAF 1 just doesn't really make sense. And when you look at challenging FNAF games in that way, which is the most challenging all the way through? I think we all know the one single FNAF game that comes to mind. It needs no introduction, and I've been getting asked to play it for over a year at this point. That game is Post Shift 2 pre-patch version 1.0.0. I never wanted to make this video, yet here I am. This is by far the longest, most painful video I have ever made. So shut up, relax, as we jump right in to Post Shift 2. Before we even start talking about Night 1, there's something I need to get out of the way. I'm sure everybody already knows, but this game is literally massive. So big, in fact, that the developer had to export the game in 2 separate files since the entire thing couldn't be exported in one. Another thing I want to get out of the way really early is that I'm going to be very negative in this video. What else is new, right? But I do want to make it clear before I even say anything is that just because I say mean things about this game doesn't mean I don't appreciate it. People call it the hardest FNAF game ever made, even knowing that there are a whole lot more that are more difficult. This game earned that title for a reason, and it's not because it's a bad game. It was made by one guy over the span of 3 years. That is impressive, and this game is impressive. All right, now that I got that out of the way, and we know Reddit is going to ignore it when they bitch and moan about me not stroking the dick of every game I cover, we can actually start talking about the game the way I would any other game. Let's just start off by talking about the sheer size of the map in this game. The first 3 nights take place in an area of the game called Aisle 1. Apparently, just staying in the office with our feet nailed to the floor was just too easy. So now we have to walk around the whole fucking building as slowly as possible. I'll get to that in a second. Let's go over the room that we'll actually be starting in first. It's called the souvenirs area, and it's completely worthless as pretty much nothing happens here. However, it is in this room where we're greeted to hands down the most terrifying thing in this entire game. This massive fucking text box. This text box right here is how the game explains its mechanics to you. No phone call, no figuring it out for yourself, just dropping a goddamn novel on you and expecting you to read the whole thing. You might think to yourself, you know, I play a lot of FNAF games. I'm sure I don't actually need to read this. I'm sure I'll be able to figure it out. No, the fuck you won't. This is hands down the most confusing game I've ever played in my entire life. I'm both excited to talk about it and not excited to talk about it because, oh my god, I want to complain, but my poor little fingers are going to kill me since I'm going to be writing this entire video in one sitting, and I quite literally type out every single word that I read in these videos. The only place you can go from this room is the aisle end. Hands down, the most important room throughout this game. This is because it connects directly to 2 other incredibly important rooms, the sanitation room and the construction room. The sanitation room is to the left and the construction room is to the right. It's about right now where I want to talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to talking about moving in this game. That being long as fuck, shit ass, fuck ass animations that play whenever you want to go anywhere. It's almost like every time the player moves, an earthquake that levels a 5 on the Richter scale goes off, causing our player to shake and jolt their head in every possible direction, making me so motion sick I was unable to beat this game myself without throwing up. And no, I'm not joking. This is quite literally the reason I avoided this game for so long, and yes, I seriously didn't beat it because I was getting so sick from these animations. And the best part? These animations take so long to play out, and the map is large so that a majority of the time when you need to respond to something quickly quickly on the other side of the map, it'll take a solid 30 seconds to do that, making your blood pressure go through the roof every single time. To get to the sanitation room, like I said, you have to go left from the aisle end. However, you don't just have to sit through one movement animation, you actually have to sit through two, because the first room you enter is a filler room and is literally completely fucking useless. Guys, I'm already mad, and we've only just begun. And of course, once you actually get to the sanitation room, you're hit with another text box the size of your mom's ass. Now, getting to the construction room, I'll tell you, is actually pretty funny. Once again, like I've already said, all you have to do is turn right from the aisle end, and this time you don't have to go through a useless room. Once you get to the construction room, you have the option of going into a back room area of the construction room. However, it's useless. So useless, in fact, that the game actually tells you that you should never go there because there's quite literally no point. So like, why the fuck did you even add it, bro? What were you thinking? But even then, we're still not done talking about the map. I'm almost done with the third page of this script, and I haven't even finished talking about the places we can go yet. I get the sneaking suspicion this is going to be a really long one, guys. Buckle up. Going back to the aisle end, we can turn around to enter the temporary aisle. From there, we can move forward into another section of the temporary aisle. And this section, and only this section of the temporary aisle, can we look in between some shelves to see if there are any animatronics getting ready to finger my butt. But I'm going to talk about those characters a bit later. We still have a lot more to talk about first. From there, we can move forward into the promotional area. And finally, from this area, we can turn left and check if any characters are holding the lube in their hands, looking at me up and down and licking their lips and shit. With the building being out of the way now, we have to bring up something very important. That being, how do we actually complete this night? Because unlike most FNAF games, this game decided to be a little bit different in quite literally the worst way possible. In order to complete a night in Post Shift 2, you actually have to do two things. The first is pretty simple, just survive until 6 a.m. However, the next thing you have to do really makes that first task seem pretty pointless. You have to complete 3 different tasks around the building using something you have called a halfless repair drone. And this drone is controlled by our employee maintenance monitor, or EMM as I will be referring to it from now on. Now, we need to just take a second to relax. Guys, if you're not ready for some old school, classic Dexter White complaining, I highly suggest you come back to this video a bit later because that's going to be what approximately the remaining of this video is going to be. The requirement of using your EMM to complete tasks brings up hands down the biggest problem this game has to offer. It tells you literally fucking nothing. Do you want to know how to open the EMM? Well, it's pretty easy. All you have to do is hover over and click the left corner of your screen. Dexter, is that the top or bottom corner? Would you believe me if I told you the game didn't tell you? And better yet, would you believe me if I told you that quite literally the only time it tells you how to open the EMM is in the first room of the game in one sentence in a giant paragraph of text and literally never again? Would you believe me if I said that? Well, you should, because that's literally what happens. How in the name of fuck did the developer think that this was a good way to explain this to the player? Once you leave this room for the first time, this guide will never appear again. So if you either don't read that sentence or forget what it said, you're just not even going to know what the EMM is. This is insanity. But maybe I'm nitpicking, even though I know I'm not. Let's continue. Just kidding. I'm still not done complaining yet. Do you want to know something even worse than what I just told you? After you manage to open up the EMM, the game doesn't tell you that the repair drones are important. Well, it kind of does, but it doesn't make it obvious. The only place this game tells you that the drone is important is after you click the drone repair button. Then, once in the repair drone menu, if you look at the text box on the side, only in the third paragraph does it tell you that this drone is required to complete the night. Actually, what the fuck is going on right now? Someone tell me I'm not over-exaggerating. This is terrible. You people wanted me to play this. Why? However, at least the drone tasks we have to complete are super easy. The length of the nights in this game are 6 minutes and 30 seconds, so not that bad at all. A lot better than what I was actually expecting. All 3 drone tasks you have to complete are the same and really don't require you to do anything at all. All you have to do is open the EMM, go to the repair drone, view, and then start repairing. The repair process will take place in the background while you do whatever else it is you need to do. Each task takes 1 minute and 15 seconds to complete, and once it's done, you can go back into the menu and start the next task. After doing all 3 and surviving until 6 a.m., we can move on to night 2. But wait, haven't you forgotten? We're We're playing a FNAF game, and I still have yet to mention a single animatronic, even though we're over 10 minutes into this video. Is that not crazy? We're this far in, and I haven't even said a character's name yet. Well, no better time than the present, that is what they say. This night introduces 3 main threats, the first being Revenant Freddy. He's probably the easiest of the 3 characters that are introduced on this night. To start, he will appear in the promotional room leaning up against a shelf. When he's here, we really don't have to worry, as the game tells us that this just means he's getting ready to attack us. When he enters this phase, one of 2 random sound cues will play, and they sound like this. Now we get to talk about how stupid the rest of the way Revenant Freddy attacks really is. Once Revenant Freddy decides to attack us, he will move to the other part of the promotional room, that part being that direction I told you that you can turn in a bit earlier. Once Revenant Freddy is here, that means he's about to kill you. However, for some reason, he plays no sound cue when moving into this position. You know, the position he gets into that actually matters. Yeah, you just have to figure that part out by yourself. Sound cue for something retarded? Yes, please. Sound cue for something important? Nah. Now we get to talk about something else that is incredibly frustrating, that being how to deal with him. The way to do it is simple. Just go to the aisle end, open the EMM, select a drone. No, not the repair drone. This is a different drone, and then target Revenant Freddy and send it off. The actual problem with this is a common recurring theme this game has, literally never telling us fucking anything at all. In order to learn that this is what we need to do, we need to open the EMM and then click on the drone to read 3 paragraphs. And that's not the end of it. In these 3 paragraphs, where exactly it explains Revenant Freddy is probably a total of 1 to 2 sentences long. What the fuck? Like I already said, Revenant Freddy is the easiest character on this night. We still have 2 more to talk about, and I promise you, both of them are no less confusing. The next character to mention is Minotaur Freddy. What does Minotaur mean? Well, it stands for Micro-Implemented Neural Activated Transferable Energy Rotors. Damn. So tell me, Dxtr, what does Micro-Implemented Neural Activated Transferable Energy Rotors Freddy do? I'm so glad you asked. Micro-Implemented Neural Activated Transferable Energy Rotors Freddy can attack you in 2 different places, in both the sanitation room and the construction room. Let's talk about the construction room attack first. Once Micro-Implemented Neural Activated Transferable Energy Rotors Freddy arrives there, this sound cue will play. Once that sound cue plays, we need to drop everything we're doing and go to the construction area just so that we can watch Micro-Implemented Neural Activated Transferable Energy Rotors Freddy climb out of a hole in the floor. Once Micro-Implemented Neural Activated Transferable Energy Rotors Freddy climbs out of the hole, a 15-second timer will appear on the screen telling us to go to the promotional area. If you don't get to the promotional area by the time that timer runs out, Micro-Implemented Neural Activated Transferable Energy Rotors Freddy is going to butt bang us, and we just don't want that at all. Once we get to the promotional room in time, we will survive the attack for some reason. I don't really know why this makes us survive, but it does. Cool. Now, what about the other attack that Micro-Implemented Neural Activated Transferable Energy Rotors Freddy can do? Once again, this attack happens in the sanitation room. Once he appears in this room, another sound key will play letting us know he's arrived that sounds like this. Now, this attack is where it gets confusing. By the way, if you couldn't tell, both of the sound cues he plays sound exactly the same. They are slightly different, but I highly doubt you'd be able to tell them apart. Here, let's actually play a game. Now that I've shown you both of the sound cues, let's play one of them and you tell me which one it was. All right, did you make your guess as to which room that would mean Micro-Implemented Neural Activated Transferable Energy Rotors Freddy went to? Well, if you said the construction room, you'd be completely fucking wrong, because that's the sound cue he plays when he goes to the sanitation room. Anyways, once he's in the sanitation room and you get there, depending on how fast you got there will change the way this attack will play out. If you got there super quickly after the sound cue went off, when you open this vent, he'll look like he always does. Show up a little later, and for some reason, he'll have a a rabbit ear. Why? I really don't fucking know. And if we wait a really long time before opening the vent, he'll look like another character we'll mention later, Revenant Bonnie. Why does he literally transform into another character? I actually have no idea. It makes no sense at all, but let's just deal with it. After seeing which version of micro-implemented neural activated transferable energy rotors Freddy we got, we'll have to open up the EMM and answer 4 questions. These questions being, does your Minotaur have a rabbit ear yet? Does it reside within the cleaning area currently? Does it almost look like a completely different character? And would you like us to revert the Minotaur's form? Obviously, depending on which version of micro-implemented neural activated transferable energy rotors Freddy that appeared, we will have to answer these questions differently. But if we answer them all correctly, then micro-implemented neural activated transferable energy rotors Freddy will leave and we'll be safe to continue doing what we were doing. And by the way, don't worry, I'll stop saying the full acronym now. I'll just be calling him Minotaur Freddy from now on. Now we get to talk about the final and most annoying threat this night introduces, Minotaur Foxy. Holy shit, this guy actually sucks so bad it's hard to breathe just thinking about him. Minotaur Foxy, like Minotaur Freddy, can attack from 2 different places. He can either go to the promotional area or can go to that special place in the shelves we can look through in the temporary aisle. In both locations, you have to deal with him in the same way. It's just finding him that's the problem. Speaking of, once he spawns, he'll play this sound cue. Once we find Minotaur Foxy, all we have to do is open up the EMM and select Voice Constructor. From here, we will be given a sentence output. We will have to reconstruct this given sentence using the 12 buttons in the middle of the screen. The sentence we have to reconstruct will be different every attack, and this game insists on making this as difficult as possible. For example, a common phrase you'll see is "to please." However, the button you need to press uses the number 2, while the sentence will always read TWO spelled out. It's confusing for the sake of being confusing, and I fucking hate that. Also, I'm sure it's obvious, but none of the ways we defend ourselves from characters in this game make any sense at all. I'm not going to waste your guys' time by talking about how they don't make sense every time we bring up a character, but just know I do think they're all stupid. Also, just one more thing I want to complain about before we move on. This game tells you that the stupid shelf place exists and that Minotaur Foxy can appear there literally in 1 sentence in the middle of a text box in the tutorial. This is by far the biggest problem this game has. I know I've said it a lot, but it just doesn't fucking tell you anything at all. One more thing I have to mention before we move on are the bonus objectives in this game, because of course this game has those. 2 of the bonus objectives on this night are quite literally impossible to miss as long as the night is completed. Those tasks being survive Revenant Freddy twice and survive Minotaur Foxy once. And that will always happen on the first night, so you don't even have to think about it. The only other 2 tasks on this night can be failed, however, it's pretty unlikely that you will. The first requires us to beat the night optimally, and there's actually something in the night that tells you how optimal the night has been so far. And the way you keep it optimal is just by doing the drone tasks as fast as possible. The only other objective on this night is completing the night at 6 a.m. with less than 10 excess seconds. This is referring to the fact that after you reach 6 a.m., the night won't end until you finish your tasks. Once you reach 6 a.m., the game will start an excess seconds timer. So as long as you complete all 3 of the drone tasks before 6 a.m. happens, then you'll complete this objective, which, considering the tasks only take 1 minute and 15 seconds and the night is 6 minutes and 30 seconds long, this really shouldn't be a problem. Alright, with all of that out of the way, it's finally time to move on to night 2. Holy shit. We're just over halfway through the length of a normal Dxtr White video, and we're only on to night 2. Editor, I'm so sorry. Night 2 is completed in the exact same way as night 1. Finish all 3 repair drone tasks and survive until 6 a.m. However, for some reason, night 2 is 7 minutes long instead of 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Why is this the case? I have no idea. But don't let yourself get fooled into thinking this night is going to be as easy as night 1, because it's not at all. Because the AI ramping of these characters is actually ridiculous. And on top of that, we actually get 2 more characters thrown on us as well. The first threat introduced on this night is Minotaur Baby, and she is probably the easiest out of all the animatronics we've seen so far. Occasionally throughout the night, you will hear this sound cue. This tells us that Miniature Baby has appeared in the souvenirs area. Yeah, I kind of lied before when I said this room was useless. Miniature Baby is actually the only reason it isn't useless. Something about Miniature Baby is that she is way more forgiving than every other character in this game. Once you hear her sound cue play, you have a good 40 seconds before she actually kills you, giving you plenty of time to check for all other characters before going over to deal with her. The way we deal with her also isn't too hard. Once we see her standing in the corner, all we have to do is open up the EMM and go to the Emotion State tab. Once in this tab, we will press the Run Memories button, and then we can start cycling through Baby's memories. Once we find one that is happy and not depressing, we will have to lock that memory, and that will make Miniature Baby go away. Of course, this game has to follow the pattern of not teaching us a fucking thing, as this game neglects to tell us which of her 10 possible memories are positive. Spoiler alert, only 3 of them are, and this is what they look like. What about these images scream positive? I have no fucking idea, but you're just meant to figure it out, as once again, the game literally doesn't tell you ever. All it does say is that some memories have the possibility of being positive. So it seems that even the dev doesn't know why these would be positive. The only other threat introduced on this night is Revenant Bonnie. Not the weird version of Miniature Freddy we saw earlier, I mean just actually Revenant Bonnie this time. The way you know he's about to attack you is very simple, as not only does a really fucking loud sound cue play, but also a counter will appear in the top corner of the screen. Revenant Bonnie wants to play a game called One-Eyed Seek, which is this game's version of a find them on the camera mechanic, because even though there are no cameras in this game, it somehow still finds a way to make the worst fucking thing in the entire world. Once Revenant Bonnie starts his attack, the counter will randomize a number between 1 and 5. This is how many times you'll need to find Bonnie. So if you get lucky, you may only have to do it once, but if you're me, you'll have to do it 5 times every fucking time. Revenant Bonnie can spawn in 5 different areas at random: the souvenir room, the construction room, the hallway before the sanitation room, the second part of the temporary aisle, and then behind the shelf in the temporary aisle. There's no way for you to know which areas he goes to. You literally just have to guess, which, with how long the movement animations take in this game, I can promise you that Revenant Bonnie will quickly become your least favorite character. There's a reason I chose to put him in the thumbnail over anybody else. I fucking hate him. There is only literally one redeeming quality about Revenant Bonnie, and that's during an attack, he will not appear in the same area twice. Everything else about him is still RNG, and that sucks ass. I should also mention that he can be skipped by using a drone, just like Revenant Freddy. However, this drone has an incredibly small chance of actually working. So I mean, I guess do it while you're passing through looking for him, but you probably won't ever see it work. So let's go over all of the RNG that Revenant Bonnie has. Once he spawns, it's random how many times you'll have to find him. From there, it's random where he'll spawn and when he'll spawn there, so you could have him spawn on opposite sides of the map every single time. And on top of that, the item we can use to skip his attack is also completely random. This is amazing, guys. What a skill-based FNAF game. This is definitely a hard game and not just total RNG. And of course, now we get to start talking about the bonus objectives. The first one to get requires even more RNG, that being luring Revenant Bonnie away with the drone, which I just mentioned is incredibly rare to ever happen. So that's just awesome. The next bonus objective is finding both Revenant Freddy and Miniature Foxy in the promotional area. This is also RNG, since Miniature Foxy only has a 50% chance to appear in the aisle shelf area instead of the promotional area. So yippee, we're gonna be here for the rest of our lives. The last 2 bonus objectives just require us to play like complete dog shit. The first has us complete the night with a lacking efficiency level, meaning that we just need to do the repair tasks really fucking slowly, and the second task being beating the night after we reach 6 a.m. So just let the clock reach 6 a.m. and then finish your last drone task. So these 2 objectives will probably be completed at the same time. Anyways, let's move on to night 3, shall we? The way we beat this night is exactly the same as night 2, so I won't touch on that. But there are another 2 characters added on this night, bringing the total up to 7. Fucking awesome. Love it. The actual threats introduced on this night are Remnant Chica and Remnant Foxy. And before we actually talk about them, I want to bring up something that confused me. For some reason, both Freddy and Bonnie have the name Revenant, while Chica and Foxy use the word Remnant. Why is there this change in their names? I don't have any idea, and from what I read on the wiki, it's not explicitly explained, so we're just gonna ignore it, and if I misspeak for the rest of the video and don't notice, I just don't give a fuck. But if you guys want to have fun, take a shot every time I mess it up. So let's talk about Remnant Chica first, since she's by far the easiest, but that doesn't exactly mean she's easy. And for those of you who have played this game before, you know exactly what what I'm talking about. Remnant Chica spawns in the construction room, but in the back area of it. Yeah, you know, that area of the construction room that the game itself told us we should never go to because it's useless. Usually I'm the one lying in these videos, but for some reason the game is the one doing the lying this time. Regardless, when Chica spawns, she will make this sound cue.
Lighting alteration detected at construction area.
Once we hear this sound cue, all we have to do is go to that corner of the construction room and stare at the hole in the floor until we see a yellow flash, which, yes, by the way, of course it's random how long this will take. Then after we see it, all we have to do is run back to the aisle end and launch a drone to distract her. So she is basically just Revenant Freddy in a different area. The only reason she's more frustrating than Revenant Freddy is because of where she's located. It takes so fucking long to get over there and so fucking long to get back that if literally any other character spawns while you're dealing with her, you are pretty much guaranteed to lose. The only other threat introduced on this night is of course Remnant Foxy, who, would you believe me, also uses that funny little area in the construction room that the game told us itself was fucking useless. Isn't that just revolutionary? I'm gonna make a FNAF game where the phone guy just fucking lies about how to deal with characters. I can just see it now. 5 Nights with Dxtr, where we have a phone guy tell us to close the door on a character, but what we actually have to do is cup our hands below our bare ass, squat down and take a shit in them, then play patty cake with the animatronic at our door. Except we're not gonna tell the player that's what we actually have to do, and we're just gonna hope that they figure out there's a poop patty cake button that's invisible in the corner of the screen until you hover over it with your mouse. God damn it, I hate this fucking game! Anyways, when Remnant Foxy spawns, he'll play this sound cue. When he does, he'll appear in the hole where Remnant Chica appears. You'll have to go over to him and look at him, then just like Remnant Chica, go deploy a drone for him. However, Remnant Foxy also has another possible way to attack us, and that's by crip walking up to us like some of the pedophiles you see on To Catch a Predator. Seriously, look at this predacious walk he has, and tell me he's not using that hook to reel in some kid's ass on the down low. Anyways, once he does walk up to us, we'll have to open up our light module. This is not inside of our EMM. Instead, it's actually another invisible button that the game basically doesn't tell you about in the bottom right corner of the screen. Once you pull this up, all you have to do is press the 3 buttons on it in order, really slowly, and then Remnant Foxy will go away. Again, why does this work? Ride my dick like a bike, that's why. Anyways, those are the only new threats on this night, which means we're free to move on to the bonus objectives. The first and fourth objectives are pretty easy. The first has us complete the night with optimal efficiency, just like night 1, and the fourth requires us to use the drone to get rid of Remnant Foxy. By the way, this has a typo in the menu, so that's cool. The other 2 threats are pretty unique, however. The first tells us to use input lag on our monitor for 3 minutes during the night. I'll talk about that one in just a second because it's really fucking weird. So let's talk about the other one first. The other one being view Remnant Chica before she attacks you. Now, of course, while I was explaining her mechanic, never once did I say that you actually see her, and that's because you don't. However, once you get back to the aisle end, before deploying the drone, you can actually turn around and see Remnant Chica standing behind you. This is all you need to do. So not very difficult at all, but it's kind of cool, I guess. Anyways, now we can talk about the input lag objective, which is really weird. I've neglected to mention something pretty important up until this point, and that's that the EMM actually has a battery life. And the more you use it, the more it decreases because that's just how power works, dumbass. Input lag is a special mode you can put your EMM into that causes your EMM to use less power throughout the night. However, at the expense of your mouse just teleporting somewhere random around the screen at random whenever it feels like it. I've not mentioned this input lag option before either because it's like completely fucking useless, but the objective forces us to use it for at least 3 minutes throughout the night. It actually sounds a lot worse than it actually is, and it makes our shit drain less power, and with how much you'll be using it during this night, that's actually much more helpful than it is hurtful. But with that, we can move on to night 4 and the second part of this game, because if you remember like 800 years ago, I mentioned that this game was too big to fit into a single game. Alright, this is where the game starts to get fucking insane, so really prepare yourself for this. Night 4 introduces a brand new area to the game and a shitload more threats to deal with. This new area is called the Miniature Containment Room or something like that. I can't remember and I'm too lazy to look it up. I know, I'm an amazing YouTuber, aren't I? This area is a lot smaller than the map we've gotten used to, but it's also only used for a single night, so that's probably why. The main room we'll see is the Containment Area, in which we can see one of the characters this night introduces this is Remnant Puppet. Turning to the right, we have some fucking boxes, and turning to the right again, we'll show an area where we can see Remnant Balloon Boy. Going back to the main room, we can look under the desk, and I'll mention why later. And finally, turning to the left from the main room, we can climb up a ladder, which legitimately takes about 6 fucking seconds of animation time. Oh my god. And once we're up here, we have our main view of the place, and we can turn around to look at more fucking boxes. Now we can talk about how we beat this night. Well, that's pretty easy because all we have to do is survive until 6 a.m. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Did I say 6 a.m.? We actually start at 6 a.m. on this night, and for some reason we have to survive until 12. It doesn't really change much, but just thought it was something I should point out. And now is when I have to tell you the news that is going to make your penis burst like a balloon. There are 8 new animatronics on this night. Technically, a few of them we've already seen before, but of course, since we're in a new area, they do something completely different. 8 fucking characters, all brand new mechanics, and I have to learn them. That's it. I'm done. Fuck it. I'm done. I'm done. I'm not doing it. Fuck. Damn it. Not really, of course. Just look at the length of this video. We've still got a long way to go. So let's just rip the band-aid off. So let's start by talking about the most important tool at our disposal during this night, that being the simulation monitors that we can view in the main area. Inside of this simulation is where 4 of the characters are active, these characters being Miniature Baby, Miniature Freddy, Miniature Balloon Boy, and Miniature Ballora. I'm going to talk about all of these 4 characters at the same time since they all pretty much do the exact same thing. Occasionally, any of them inside of the simulation may become pissed off about who knows what and ask you for something. On the side of the screen, you will see we have an inventory of 5 items. So if a character asks us for pizza, for example, then we have to click the pizza to give it to them. And yes, all of the characters in the simulation are humans, but if we fail to give them what they want, they will appear right next to us as animatronics and rail us from the back while using our ponytail like a handle. These 4 characters don't have any sound cues for when they're upset. However, that's where this virtual discontent percentage comes into play. For each character, whenever they get mad, they will increase this percentage by 25. This is how you know you need to go deal with one of them. Not very hard, but they're really just a problem because of the goddamn animations we'll have to deal with. Now we can move on to talking about the 4 remaining animatronics that are always physically right next to us. Let's start by talking about the easiest, that being the Miniaturinas. They appear under the desk, and they only appear if either your surrounding activity or your virtual discontent reach 30%. And once they appear, they will never leave. To prevent them from attacking you, all you have to do is occasionally check on them so they don't kill you. However, let me tell you a little secret. If they ever appear, you should just restart the night because that's a lot easier than having to actually constantly check on these fuckheads. It's a lot more convenient to just make sure these percentages never reach 30%. The next easiest character is a Remnant Balloon Boy, and he's easy because he's just the Miniaturinas, except he's always there. He's located directly behind us, and all we have to do is stare at him to prevent him from moving. So you should really just spend a majority of the night doing exactly that. The next character I want to talk about is Miniature Puppet. Just like pretty much every other character so far, Miniature Puppet also makes no sound cue when she arrives. Instead, you'll be able to tell she's spawned once the surrounding activity increases by 5%. When she does, you'll want to quickly move up the ladder and see her floating in the air, farming aura. Once we stare at Miniature Puppet long enough, another character named Venta Puppet will appear directly in front of us and start exhaling his rank-ass breath right in our face. Once Venta Puppet appears, we'll have to spam click the outer edges of our screen to like escape his grasp or something. I really don't know. And once we do that enough, both of them will leave and our surrounding activity will return to around 10%. And finally, we only have one more threat to talk about, and that is Remnant Puppet. She is by far the most difficult character on this night, so let's just get her out of the way. She will appear on the main monitor directly in front of us, and using this monitor is how we track her location. In stage 1, the monitor will say observe. In stage 2, she will get closer and the monitor will say its name like vowels when there's an E at the end of the word. What? Am I retarded? Bro, I must be losing it. I've been staring at Google Docs for too long because what the fuck did I just write? However, stage 3 is when things get bad. The monitor will change to say I am above, and it's at this time where we need to click the screen a fuck ton of times until the text Y/N shows up. Multiple times means like fucking 30, by the way, so get ready to break your mouse in half. Once the YN text appears, you have to press Y and then move up to the top area of the map. Then we have to turn around and watch the puppet crawl behind the box back into the 9th circle of hell where it came from. And that's it. I said she was the hardest, but that's really just because of how quickly you have to click about 7 million times. With all of the threats out of the way, we can move on to the bonus objectives. And thankfully, 2 of them are super easy. The first has us escape Venta Puppet, which is literally required to beat the night anyways, so that's cool. And the second is dying to Remnant Puppet, which is also not hard. However, the other 2 objectives on this night are actually pretty fucking hard. The first being getting no errors while doing the simulations. That means you can't mess up and give an unhappy character the wrong item, or give a happy character an item at all because they didn't ask for one. This is only hard because understanding which each item is kind of weird since the pictures make no sense. And finally, the hardest objective in both this night and the entire game so far is to not have Remnant Balloon Boy move from his starting position throughout the whole night. This just means we have to stare at this fat, ugly piece of shit for the majority of the night. However, this becomes really difficult when we factor in that this is entirely dependent on RNG and hoping that we don't get attacked by 2 other characters at the exact same time. And that's all Night 4 has to offer. And it's honestly such a nice breath of fresh air compared to the first 3 nights, since aside from that one bonus objective, there's literally no RNG at all and it's completely skill-based. Of course, the game still does a fucking horrible job of explaining anything. I've just kind of stopped mentioning that at this point because if I didn't, it would really quickly become 80% of this entire video. All right, moving on to Night 5, and this is where the game really brings its difficulty to the max. Sure, this entire game has been really fucking hard so far, but Night 5 and especially Night 6 are just completely fucking ridiculous. So let's get right into it. Night 5 only has 4 threats to deal with, but they're all new, and on top of that, we have another massive map to learn. And each character has an entire section of the map dedicated to them. And of course, the game still makes us read a book to understand anything, except the book might as well be in fucking Hebrew because I have no idea what any of it means. The map layout is pretty simple. We have one main hub area, and then in each direction is one of the characters' areas. To the north, we have Freddy, to the east, we have Chica, to the south is Bonnie, and west is Foxy. And yes, if you were wondering, there are incredibly long hallways leading to each area, and yes, the animations that play between them are long as dick and balls. The way we complete Night 5 is by doing 2 tasks. The first being surviving until 6 a.m., which for some reason takes 8 minutes this time. I don't know why time keeps warping in this game, but it does. And the second is completing something this game calls Insta Orders. What are Insta Orders, I hear you asking? Well, don't ask the game because it does a dog shit, horse shit, human shit job at it. So let me just tell you instead. Now, Insta Orders are really fucking stupid. You can do them throughout the night, but you really shouldn't. The game only needs you to complete 1 to finish the night, but the order has to be completed after you hit 6 a.m. And doing them during the night literally provides you no benefit aside from wasting your time. So just like wait until 6 a.m. to do them. The next thing we have to do once it's actually time to do the order is to establish a web line or something. To do that, all you have to do is open the monitor and press Q to open the additional monitor. Now, you might be wondering why I told you that you need to press Q. I never talk about the keybinds in FNAF games unless they're really fucking dumb. Well, that should have been the key takeaway there because this keybind is really dumb. The reason it's so dumb, well, I'm not kidding. The game quite literally never tells you about the additional monitor. It's not even hidden in some random paragraph. I read all of it. It literally doesn't tell you. You're just supposed to figure it out. Anyways, once you figure that out, open the webline menu and just wait for the connection to be established. The reason we need to do this is because if we don't have a secure webline, then the game can actually give us fake progress on our Insta orders, which would mean that we could think we're making progress when we're just not. So that's fun. Always establish a connection, kids, especially with your runaway deadbeat dad. After we establish the connection, we just press the Insta order button and wait for it to be done. After that, we should complete the night. However, something I should mention about both establishing a connection and completing an order is that the amount of time it takes for these actions to complete are completely fucking random and could take forever if you get really unlucky. And you can't close the monitor while these things are happening. So if an animatronic spawns during it, you will just lose. Amazing. All right, now let's move on to talking about the threats introduced. Keep in mind that each of them are dealt with in a completely different way, and each of them are located in a completely different spot on the map that takes 400 years to get to, and everything is RNG based and sucks dick. Got that? Cool. let's talk about the first threat, Subject 1 Freddy. You know Freddy will spawn when you hear this sound cue. Once we get to Freddy, we will see him playing the piano like Beethoven. I think Beethoven played the piano. I don't know. That could be wrong. I really don't know. All we have to do is open up our monitor and select Song Data Bank. From there, all we have to do is correctly select which song Freddy is playing. He will be playing one of 4 songs, and of course, there's no way to know which one is which unless you already know them. I'm not going to waste your time playing all of them for you, but just know that this is some bullshit trial and error. Once you choose the right song, Freddy will fuck off. The next threat we're going to talk about is Subject 2 Foxy. The way he works is pretty interesting, but that's because he has 2 forms of attack. The first is really easy and is literally just Freddy, but easier. You will hear a sound cue that will play a random hertz number.
440 hertz.
Once you hear it, all you have to do is go over to Foxy's curtain, open your monitor, and go to sine waves and press whichever hertz number you heard. His other attack, however, is where it gets interesting. Once again, you will hear a sound cue, except this time it will just tell you to go to Foxy's stage.
Foxy aggression detected. Move to Foxy's stage.
Once you get there, you'll notice that you can't see Foxy poking his head out of the curtains like you saw last time. What you have to do is open up your monitor and then open the extra monitor and click cameras. This will show a camera inside of Pirate's Cove. You'll have to wait for Foxy's eyes to disappear. Then close your monitors and click at the button at the bottom of the screen that says declare missing Foxy eyes. And of course, if you were wondering, the game literally doesn't tell you this fucking button exists at all. So that's just cool. Next up, I want to talk about Subject 3 Chica, who, I'll be honest, I still don't really understand how she works, but dealing with her is super easy. And I know that doesn't make sense, but just shut the fuck up. It'll make sense in just a second. When Chica attacks, she will make this sound cue.
Tower is now being routed to stage 3.
Once she does, all you have to do is go over to her section of the building, open the monitor, select override power, and then press cut, and this will make her go away. That's literally it. You might be wondering how I'm confused about that if I just explained it, but lucky you, that's what this next part of the video is all about. The reason why Chica confused me so much is the unbelievable amount of other shit that we can do to interact with her. To start, you can use oxygen removal, which will prevent Chica from killing us for 90 seconds, but will also force us to wear our mask, which, by the way, I know I haven't mentioned, but shut up, and we'll have to wear that mask the whole 90 seconds. We can also use something called a temporary fix, which will make Chica literally disappear for the rest of the night. However, from that point forward, every hour in game has a 1 in 4 chance of killing us immediately. We can use something called Prevent, which will stop Chica from ghosting for 120 seconds, but as a result, she'll become more hostile. And if you don't know what ghosting means, me too, bro. What ghosting means is that she'll just damage your mask. You might ask how we know that she's damaging it, and when she damages it. Maybe there's a sound cue, maybe there's a... Nope! The game just doesn't fucking tell us, so I have no idea, and I can't answer that question. So my main question is just, why the fuck does all this extra shit exist? You literally don't have to use any of it. Dealing with Chica is so simple, there's actually no point in using any of it at all, and in all honesty, we'll probably end up making the night more difficult if you do, rather than just dealing with her normally. And finally, we get to talk about my least favorite character, Subject 4 Bonnie. Easily the most confusing character in the entire night. Except unlike Chica, he's confusing because it's actually him who's confusing, and not all of the mechanics. Bonnie is pretty much just Freddy, but a little bit different. Where when you're dealing with Freddy, he'll play one of 4 different songs. Bonnie will instead play the same song with just 4 different versions of it. If that was confusing, that's what I meant. His song sounds like this. In our monitor, we can see 4 different buttons that relate to the 4 different versions of the song that Bonnie can play. Yes, I want to die. Thank you for asking. These buttons are with drums, without drums, normal pitch, and low pitch. But of course, this game has to make these buttons as confusing as possible and literally have them make no sense at all. Because if we hear the song without drums, instead of pushing the without drums button, we actually have to push the with drums button because fuck you in the face with my fat steamy balls. balls. And of course, if we hear the song playing with drums, we have to push without drums. If we hear the song playing in a low pitch, we have to press normal pitch. And would you believe me if I told you that if we hear the song playing in a normal pitch, that we also have to press normal pitch, making the low pitch button literally completely fucking worthless. What the fuck is going on? What could have possibly been going through the dev's mind when creating this aside from black tar heroin? And of course, we don't get to hear the normal version of Bonnie's song at any point. So you just have to guess what the fuck low pitch and with and without drums even sounds like. So more trial and error. Hooray! However, there is one way to prevent Bonnie from being able to attack you by using a deterrent plush. It can only be placed when Bonnie isn't active, and you do this by going up to a stage and just placing it there. This will prevent him from spawning for 30 seconds, and with each subsequent place, it will become less and less effective before it just doesn't work at all. Before we move on, I need to complain about some bullshit that makes my dick hurt. If we look at the top corner of the screen, we'll see 3 percentages. Just ignore oxygen and condition because you're not even going to notice them, I promise. What matters is attention. Attention will increase whenever you do literally anything. Pulling up the monitor, moving around, doesn't matter. It will increase. If at any point this meter reaches 15%, all of the animatronics will become much more aggressive. And with it taking 9 fucking seconds to move between rooms, when they're this aggressive, you're going to lose every single time. And the best part? That is never once explained by the game. It never tells you that reaching 15% is basically a game over. It only tells you to be wary of your attention meter. What kind of fucking tutorial is this? Are you retarded? This is the equivalent of when AAA studios test their games on top of the line equipment and then release a game that nobody can play because they don't have a $12 million supercomputer. God damn it, bro. Just explain shit better, for the love of fuck. Now let's move on to the bonus objectives. 2 of them are pretty damn easy. The first has us encounter Chica while she's ghosting. So just like enter her room a bunch and you'll get it. And the next one is completing the night with optimal mask damage or whatever. Just use the mask as little as possible and don't use it while Chica's ghosting. Pretty easy. The next objective is a little bit harder. That being completing the night without the plushie losing its effectiveness too much. That's referring to the Bonnie plushie, since I haven't mentioned another plushie, you dumbass. You can get away with using the plushie 3 times throughout the night before you lose this objective. So just like only use it 3 times. The final objective is kind of the hardest one, just a little bit different. Something I haven't mentioned during this night are the 2 specials that you can activate on your additional monitor. Both of them can only be used once during the night. And this final objective has us complete the night without using the second life special. The second life special is just a second life. If you die, you'll respawn, but the clock will be set back by a single hour. So not doing that is pretty easy. Just don't do it. I'll mention the other special since we're talking about them, even though they don't affect this objective. It's called silent mode, and it just makes no percentage be added to our attention for 35 seconds. Yeah, always use this one. There's no downside to it. All right, it's time to talk about the single reason why I never wanted to cover this game, Night 6. Night 6 has a whopping 18 fucking animatronics to deal with, and they're all bullshit. And on top of that, the tutorial screen before this night is 5 fucking pages long. Oh my god, I don't want to read all that. But I'm making this video, so obviously I read all of it, or else I wouldn't be able to tell you what you have to do. Let's start by talking about the map. Thankfully, the map is only 1 room. I was thinking it was gonna be fucking massive, but at least that's something I don't have to worry about. The way we complete this night is by surviving until 6 a.m. But that's not it. Even after we get to 6 a.m., we still have to survive another 200 seconds, making this night a total of 12 fucking minutes long. Oh my god, kill me. On top of that, we have to do another insta order, except just like the last one, we can't do it at all until the survival task has been completed. Amazing. However, I do actually have some good news for you. This night is split into multiple sections, and 3 of those sections have checkpoints, so not all hope is lost. But don't let that fool you. This is by far still the hardest night in the entire game. The first section is from 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. and has us go up against the subject animatronics from night 5. Section 2 is from 2 to 4 a.m. and has us go up against Remnant Puppet, Miniature Puppet, Remnant Balloon Boy, Remnant Ballora, Miniature Baby, and Miniature Balloon Boy. So yeah, pretty much just everything all at once. I love it. After beating this section is where we get our first checkpoint. Then we move on to section 3, which is from 4 4 to 6 a.m. and has us deal with Revenant Freddy, Revenant Bonnie, Remnant Foxy, and Remnant Chica. And after this section, we also get another checkpoint. And finally, we move on to section 4, which is just those final 200 seconds, which have us defend ourselves from 2 new threats called Revenant's End and Amalgabot. I'm not excited for those two, but we'll talk about them in a little bit. Let's start with section 1 and Freddy. Freddy will appear in the vent walkway's view. To get rid of him, all we have to do is open our monitor and press the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 in quite literally any order. It doesn't matter, so I don't even really know why they're numbered. I guess the dev was just running out of ideas at this point. Foxy is also really easy. He'll appear in this area. Don't even remember the name, don't really care, and I doubt you do either. All you have to do is press the load voice on our monitor, and he'll go away. Once again, they're running out of ideas, and it's really showing. The only problem with Foxy is that he's really far away from everybody else, and after pressing the button, you have to wait like 10 seconds before you can continue. Chica is also incredibly easy. She'll appear at the prototype table, and if we happen to see her little doggies peeking out from behind the table, all you need to do is pull out your Chica plushie and turn it around. Yes, turning it around is a different action from pulling it out. Don't ask me why. This will cause her to go away. Again, super easy. I see why there's no checkpoint at the end of this section. Bonnie is the last character in this section, and he's by far the hardest. Just like Night 5, he'll play a stupid song, and you have to press a button correlating to what the song sounds like. Except this game, of course, had to change the way this shit works for some reason. The buttons this time are normal pitch, low pitch, with drums, and glitched guitar. Except unlike last night, where we had to press the opposite button most of the time, this time we actually have to press the correct button because fuck you. This section also mentions 2 additional characters, Golden Freddy and Shadow Freddy. However, I'll talk about Golden Freddy later since he's always active, and from what I could tell from watching a few different playthroughs of this game, because again, I was unable to do it for myself without getting very sick. I never once saw anybody see Shadow Freddy, so I'm just gonna assume he's bugged. Now we get to move on to section 2, which is much fucking harder than section 1. Like, a lot fucking harder, oh my lord. Let's just start by talking about Remnant Balloon Boy. He appears at the communication area. He will slowly open up his chest throughout the night, and all you have to do is click it every once in a while to stop him from boinking us. The next threat is Miniature Puppet, who can spawn on your cameras at random. Of course. Oh yeah, there are cameras on this night. I just didn't say that because it wasn't relevant before. All you gotta do is stare at him and he'll eventually disappear. Just to find them on the camera character because I hate my life. Miniature Puppet doesn't kill us if we fail to do so. He just becomes an annoying hallucination on our screen. And to get rid of him, we have to stare at Golden Freddy's stage. And I'll explain why that's a problem a bit later. Miniature Baby is who I'll talk about next, and she's probably the easiest character here. Just like the previous night she was in, all you have to do is look through memories for good ones whenever she attacks, and she'll go away. This has the same problem as her last problem, so I'm not gonna mention it and just move on because this video is already long enough. Remnant Puppet is another pretty easy character. He only spawns on camera 5, and if you ever see him there, just press the button in the corner that changes the camera position and he'll go away for some reason. Since you'll be checking for the other puppet all the time, this guy really shouldn't be a problem. The next character I want to talk about is Miniature Balloon Boy, who is just really fucking annoying. He will want to play a game called Hide and Listen. Not quite the name of the game, but he tried his best. When he wants to play it, you have to hide under the table with him. Once you hear him leave, you can get out from under the table, and congrats! You've just played the most boring game of all time. The final character during this section is Miniature Ballora, who is pretty much just Foxy from the first section. She appears in the same area, except instead of pressing one button, we have to open the side panel and press a different button. Oh, wow. Section 3 is where it starts to get fucking insanely hard. Revenant Bonnie is probably the easiest, so let's start with him. He spawns at either the Foxy Ballora place or on Golden Freddy's stage. For both of these, all you have to do is open your camera and launch a drone to distract him because his autistic interest is drones, and that's it. Revenant Freddy is the next character I want to talk about, and I'll be honest, compared to like all of the other characters on this night, he is so much more complicated for like no reason at all. When he spawns at the prototype table, he will be playing music. You have to listen for when his song plays 2 of the exact same notes. When he does, you'll have to use those Freddy buttons from earlier, except instead of pressing them in any order, you have to press them from largest to smallest. After doing so, you then need to open the camera and reset the song from there. Why is that reset song button in the cameras instead of the monitor? I literally have no fucking idea. I really just want to be done writing. I've been doing this for the last 5 hours. I'm not even joking.
I've been scripting for the last 5 fucking hours. The script here, you see, look, that's what I said, oh wow, and then I told the editor to put this video right here, isn't that cool? And we got a cat down here. Sup, kitty? Yeah, you heard that? That was her saying, it's some fucking bullshit, stop writing. I'm like, bro, I wanna. Damn.
Remnant Foxy is super similar to Freddy because he's also complete bullshit. He will spawn under the table, and when he does, we also need to get under the table with him, I guess. I don't know why. From there, we need to open the cameras, which will now for some reason display his memories instead of cameras. What the fuck is going on? Once there, we need to select a negative memory, and that will scare him away. Do you got all this? I hope so, because if you don't, you wouldn't be able to play this game for yourself, because I had to extract this shit from mountains of text. Meanwhile, I'm just spoon feeding it to you. The final threat in this section is Remnant Chica, who is probably the easiest. She works the same as Subject 3 Chica. When you see her, just show her the plushie and she'll leave. The only actual problem is that you need to be really fucking fast when she spawns. And finally, we can move on to talking about the hardest section throughout this entire night, with the characters Revenant's End and Amalgabot. Let's start by talking about Revenant's End, since he is by far the most difficult and leaves a sour taste in my mouth, and I really just want to forget about him. Revenant's End has 3 different ways to attack us, all with different ways of dealing with him. The first place he can attack is in an elevator I've just not mentioned so far. When you get to the elevator, you can open the doors to see if he's there. If he's not, you'll see 2 plushies. If you actually do see him, you'll have to close the doors, wait 3 seconds, and then reopen them. Repeat this until you see him standing up, and then you can walk away. The other 2 ways he can attack are pretty much the same. The first has him spawn near Golden Freddy. We need to turn to the vent view of Golden Freddy's stage and play a voice lure from the monitor to lure him away. Once he's there, we get rid of him in the exact same way that we get rid of him in the third way. And the third way is having him just spawn next to the vents themselves. When he does, 4 buttons will appear in the corners of your screen, and you need to press them in a Z pattern to close a mask over your face, which will scare him away. Amalgabot also has 3 different ways to attack, and from what I could tell, he always seems to attack right after Revenant's End. The first attack is really easy. He spawns by the communications post, and all you have to do is put your mask on, and it'll scare him away for some reason. The second way he attacks makes me want to kill myself. He'll spawn at the table, and we'll have to open up our cameras and search them until we find a stop music button that appears on one of them at random. I'm sure you can tell why I don't like this attack. We have to spam click this button until it disappears, which, yes, by the way, is entirely luck-based, and then he'll go away. His final attack is pretty much exactly the fucking same. He'll spawn under the table, and we have to go under there with him. From there, we have to open the cameras and find another randomly spawning button and click it, and he'll go away. Great. More RNG. Love it. And of course, now is the time that I should talk about Golden Freddy, who has been attacking us this entire time. He is obviously on his stage, and every once in a while his music will become unstable. When that happens, we just have to go over to his speakers and decrease the volume, and you're done. If you were expecting him to be super ass and insanely interesting, you're probably disappointed, because that's literally it. You might be thinking that all that's left to be talked about is the bonus objectives, but you'd be wrong, because there's actually a fuck ton more during this night that the game quite literally never fucking mentions. To start, let's talk about the metric shitload of fuck in the top corner of the screen. Attention, oxygen, and condition are exactly the same as in Night 5, so we'll just skip those. The first real mechanic is power. It constantly goes down no matter what you do, but if you go to the communication table, you can increase it by 10% just by pressing a button and waiting. The next one is radiation exposure, which I've literally never seen anybody increase no matter what they've done, so I really don't know what to say about that. And once again, the game doesn't tell you either. And the final one is health, which will only ever decrease when Minotaur Puppet is doing her hallucination thing. That's why I don't like her, by the way. I could have said that when I was talking about her, but fuck you. Also inside of our monitor, we have 3 repair buttons that do literally nothing and 2 specials. One that gives us unlimited power for 30 seconds and another that does the silent mode thing for 35 seconds again. So yeah, just use them both because they're good. Okay, I kind of lied about the repair buttons being useless. Repair leaks is actually useful. Occasionally at random, a gas leak will happen to drain our oxygen and kill us. So use this button to fix it. That's it. The other 2 are actually useless though. There is still a lot more shit, honestly. Like probably another 20 minutes of shit to mention. I'm not even kidding. Like this weird virus thing near the Foxy area. But I seriously just want to be done talking about this game. And in all honesty, these extra things really aren't interesting or impactful at all. Finally, we can talk about the bonus objectives, which aren't really that bad, except 2 of them, which actually do suck dick and balls. The 2 easy ones are beating the night without any specials. You don't really need the specials to beat the night, so that's not really that big of a problem. And the other is to beat the night without passing 10% radiation. Again, I've never seen anybody get any radiation, so that also isn't really a problem. The bonuses that actually get hard start with beating the night without reaching 22% attention. With how much shit you have to do to complete this night, it's obviously going to be hard as shit. And the final bonus objective is by far the hardest and brings up another character I've mentioned twice during this night already. That being completing the night without going below 80% health. Basically, that just means you can never be attacked by Minotaur Puppet, since if she becomes a hallucination, it is literally impossible to not go below 80% health. This is why I told you guys to really make sure you're focusing on her, because otherwise you won't be able to get this objective. But that's way fucking easier said than done, since the second section where Minotaur Puppet is present probably has the most shit to do out of any other section. So you're pretty much going to get no time to actually check for her. So have fun. I know I wouldn't. And yes, before you guys say anything, I know that this game has a fuck ton more shit to do in the post game, with a lot harder nights filled with a bunch more bullshit that will make me want to cry. But this video is already so fucking long, and I've been scripting for no joke the last 7 hours straight. Yeah, when I told you I was done with 5 hours of scripting like 10 minutes ago, it actually took me 2 more hours to script from that point to this point. There was that much shit to look up. I need to be done. Plus, I don't want to hand my editor a long as fuck video. He's already going to hate me for what we have already. But if you really want to see me cover the rest of this game, which I promise will be another very fucking long video, probably the same length of this video, if not longer, then let me know in the comments below, and if this video gets enough views, then I'll gladly do it. But that's the main game of Post Shift 2 and what it has to offer. This game has the reputation of being the hardest FNAF game ever made, and while that's obviously literally not true, I can totally understand why people feel this way. It isn't just a max mode that's hard. It's literally the entire game, the whole way through. While I think this game is actually really cool as a concept, especially with all the post game and bonus objectives, which is the type of stuff I eat up, I can totally understand why this game has left such a massive mark on the community. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think that Post Shift 2 is completely overrated and people need to shut the fuck up about it? Let me know in the comments below. In my Bondi's Barnyard video, I asked you guys a completely retarded question that I'm not going to repeat here, and I'm not going to entertain the answers of. The question of this, I have the misfortune of telling you about a game that made me so incredibly angry during my playthrough that I've avoided making this very Dxtr White video for the last several months. I have not wanted to touch this game ever since I finished playing it, but here I am. I noticed that I've only been covering games that have been making me happy recently. Games that don't make my blood vessels explode. Well, I figured today I'd switch it up a little bit and talk about a game that makes me so irrationally angry I can barely breathe just thinking about it. Let's waste no more time and jump into the absolute dumpster fire of a world that is Fang's Pizza and Theater. Before the game even begins, we're thrown into Event, with seemingly something standing outside of it. I personally find it fitting that we're sitting in Event because that's personally where I will be crawling to die after finishing this video, which by the way, I will tell you, I cannot wait for. I'm only 3 paragraphs into this and I'm already dreading writing the rest of this video. I played this game so long ago that I've mostly wiped it from my memory, so now I'm forced to watch somebody else play it and relive my traumas like a patient with PTSD. But with that, we're thrown into night 1 and we can talk about the tools at our disposal. And how much I fucking hate them. To start, we obviously have our camera system. Of course, it's a FNAF game, so that's pretty par for the course. On top of that, we have a flashlight. However, this flashlight does not work the way a flashlight normally works. No, that would be too easy and make poor little Dxtr too happy. Instead, they had to make this flashlight literally worse than Satan. While yes, this flashlight does work as a normal flashlight, it will also be our main form of defense throughout this entire game. So get used to using it constantly. But we'll talk more about that once we start talking about the threats this piece of shit bullshit fuck-ass game introduces. The flashlight's battery will decrease very fast for reasons I'll talk about a bit later. For now, let's talk about what you have to do when this flashlight gets low on battery. Well, I'm sure you've noticed just from the footage I'm showing you on screen right now, but the office we're in is pretty big. Turning around completely, we'll find a shelf with several batteries on it. Clicking on one of these piles of batteries will completely fill our flashlight, but we obviously only have a limited amount of batteries, so we can't be retarded about it. The last thing I want to talk about before we dive into the characters this night introduces are the 3 entrances to our office. The left vent, the window in front of us, and the right door. That's really it. There's no way to close any of them. They're just entrances. Okay, moving on. Night 1 introduces 2 threats, and both of them go to show off the worst mechanic this game has to offer, in my opinion, that being the main fucking mechanic. Maybe I'm just salty today, I don't know, but I really didn't like this game, as I'm sure you could have already been able to tell. Let's start from the simplest character, Faye. Faye acts as this game's introductory character. She's so incredibly easy to understand, but don't let that fool you. I've lost several fucking times to this piece of shit, so don't get it twisted. Faye will begin on the east stage. From there, she'll move to the dining room, to the bar where you'll be able to find me for the next week until it's time for me to write the next white video. Then, from the bar, she'll move to the hallway, wherein directly after she'll show up outside of our office window. And this is also where the first ass-clenching mechanic gets introduced. You can't see characters in your office unless you flash your light on them. Now, is this a problem by itself? No, of course not. Not at all. However, when your main mechanic is your flashlight and you need to waste power constantly checking bullshit, then it makes me piss an entire fire hydrant out of my urethra. Anyways, when you see Faye at your window, that's when it's time to act. And this is also where I get to talk about that silly little thing your flashlight does that I mentioned earlier. If you hold down your flashlight, it'll slowly charge and then release a light so bright you'd think a third nuke was dropped on Japan. Bam! Bitch, the light of God on your ass. Obviously, Faye doesn't fucking like it when you literally put the sun in her eyes, so she backs off and goes back on stage. However, using this big mega flash wastes a bunch of power on your flashlight, so it's likely you'll have to grab a battery. Dxtr, that doesn't really sound so bad. I don't know why you're complaining. Well, just sit back. If you haven't figured out what this game is about to do to my organs, you will soon find out, so stick around. The second threat introduced on this night is the main attraction, Fang. Fang is everything you hate about Faye, except even worse because he has more choices. Typical man, am I right, ladies? Huh? No? Okay, moving on. Fang will begin on the east stage with Faye. From there, he'll move to the dining room. However, at this point, he has 2 options for what he can do next. Let's cover his first route first, wherein he'll go from the dining room to the restrooms, and from the restrooms to the hallway. Want to hear something awesome about him going to the hallway? You can't fucking see him when he's there. Why? Because fuck your mother in the face, that's why. From the From the hallway, he'll jump into the vents, which thankfully you can hear. And then, finally, he will be in the vent entrance of your office. Of course, you won't be able to see him without your flashlight, and just like Faye, when you see him, drop Little Boy on him and he'll go away. Alright, time to talk about Fang's second route, where he goes from the dining area to the bar. Once again, you will notice I am still present there because I've drank so much to the point where the bartender took my keys and I'm sitting there thinking, bitch, I can't leave. I'm miles away from home and you took my keys, so I guess I'm staying the night. After that, Fang moves to the hall corner, and from there he appears at our office's doorway. Do you want to take a guess what we do when he's there? That's right, we drop Fat Man on his ass and he'll go away. Are you starting to notice a pattern here and why it might be possibly incredibly frustrating, especially on later nights when the AI really kicks it into high gear? If not, you'll soon learn. But that's all this night has to offer. Of course, we also get a post-night minigame to play. Hooray! I never actually got any minigames in my playthrough. I'm not really sure why, and I don't give enough of a fuck to figure it out if I'm being honest with you. So let's just talk about the minigame. In it, we have to talk to our boss, which is this thick rabbit. And bro, I'm not gonna lie, I'd suck the cum out of her dad's dick just to get the recipe because And bro, I'm not gonna lie, I'd suck the cum out of her dad's dick just to get the recipe because hot damn, I'd go crazy for this thing. She tells us to take out the trash like a good little boy, and I get down on all fours and do whatever she tells me to. Ruff, ruff! While looking for garbage cans, we walk into the bathroom and get teleported into some grandma's varicose veins. I'm not really sure why we're here, but there's shadow children running around and flashing hallucinations. After walking around the most nauseating place I've ever been in my entire life, we find this thing. What is it? I literally have no idea. But after we touch it, we're teleported back to the restaurant where we can find the rest of the garbage and finish up our shift by talking to mommy, and finally night one comes to a close. I really don't like how long it took me to talk about this night because I still have so much more to talk about, and I really would like to go back to forgetting that this game even exists. So let's just keep trucking through it. Starting night 2, we have another cutscene. This time, instead of being an event, we appear under a table or something. Who cares? We hear some footsteps, see whatever the hell this is at the end, and finally we're dropped into the next night section. During the phone call, we learn that the owner is trying to sell off the company. Last night's phone call told us about some new competitor restaurant that's doing better, probably Fazbear's if I had to guess. Who cares about the owner's problems? My problems matter to me a lot more, and I think that's a life lesson we could all take to heart. Mind your own fucking business. Only one new threat is introduced on this night, Melody the Bat. Thankfully, Melody acts as more of an annoyance character than an actual threat, and you really shouldn't have to worry too much about her. Melody will start on the west stage. From there, she'll move to the dining room, then the restrooms. Then she'll go to the hallway, to the hallway's corner, to the ordering station, then either the kitchen or the bar to visit me. Finally, depending on where she went, she'll either go to the parts and service or the dining room, and from there she'll jump back to the bathrooms. So, what is she actually doing all this time? Well, she has a chance to randomly attack one of the cameras. When she's attacking one, you'll get a notification in the corner of your cameras telling you so. You'll have to find the camera she's on and stare at her. If you don't, then she'll knock that camera out for the rest of the night. But get this, it really doesn't fucking matter. Her find her on the camera bullshit is pretty much nullified by the fact you really only need to watch 3 cameras throughout the entire game. So if she's not attacking any of those 3, then it doesn't really matter. Let them get fucked, nobody cares. Fang and Faye ramp up quite a bit on this night, so I don't really appreciate that. But with that, that's all night 2 really has to offer, and we can move on to the post-night 2 minigame. I'm very excited to see the Rabussy again. I can't lie, I'm rocking about a half chub right now just thinking about it. In this minigame, our Dom boss tells us to mop up the floors. I'll literally do anything you ask me, please. I don't think you understand. I'm such a degenerate. Anyways, fuck actually doing that. Behind the counter, we find a weird looking chair. Touch it and it'll take us back to Vane's world. If anybody gets that reference, I love you, by the way. Touch that weird looking thing again and we go back to the restaurant. Finish mopping and we can move on to night 3. Come on, let's keep it moving. Night 3 begins with another cutscene. In it, we're in a hallway this time, and we see this very tall, nice-looking gentleman at the end of the hallway. Very cool, however, unfortunately, I literally don't care at all. Please, let's just move on to the night section. I really don't care about what the phone guy has to say on this night, but if you guys do, he basically tells us a story about how Fang was stuck in the vents, and they spent over an hour trying to get him out. Whoopity-doo, suck me off. Who's introduced on this night, and is it literally the worst character on the face of the planet Earth? Yes. The answer to that question is yes. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the literal cancer of the world, Nubs the Bear. Nubs is by far the most frustrating character in this entire game, and not even necessarily from his mechanic alone, but specifically from an anecdote I have from my playthrough, which you can see over on my second channel, Dxtr Black. Nubs begins on the west stage. From there, he'll move to the dining room. Then he'll go to either parts and service or the entrance. Then the bar to greet me once again. Yes, I still haven't left. Then from there, he'll either go to the hallway or the ordering station, and finally, he'll enter the vent. If Nubs ever gets to your vent, there's no way to stop him because he will be crawling all the way inside of your butt. God damn it! Fuck me and my... what the fuck? I didn't see him anywhere. What the fuck, bro? I didn't see him. So, how do you stop him from doing that? Well, you can catch Nubs on 2 of the cameras he goes through, the hallway and the ordering station. If you stare at him for a few seconds, he'll reset. However, this is where literally Death Incarnate himself comes out in the form of Nubs. This game literally does not tell you which camera Nubs can appear in, and Nubs, being a very dark character, is incredibly hard to notice on the cameras if you don't know where to look. And on top of that, he also hides, making it even harder to see him. So a mix of all of this leads to you literally dying to Nubs because you have no way of knowing which fucking cameras he can appear on without hours and hours of trial and error. This is the bullshit I went through during my playthrough. This motherfucker right here is why I never wanted to touch this game again. This piece of shit spit in my asshole, ruptured my spleen, caused my appendix to burst, and gave me a brain aneurysm. I hate this guy so much. He's not even challenging to deal with. It's just a pain in the dick that it took me what felt like 4 fucking months to figure all of his bullshit out. I think I'd rather get a urethral swab than ever play this game again, specifically because of this asshole right here. Play the game yourself. Fuck you. I'm not even gonna tell you which cameras he appears on. I hate all of you. Fuck. And of course, if you couldn't guess, both Fang and Faye have been ingesting cocaine like a suppository, so they're absolutely cracked out of their minds. Dude, I don't even want to. I actually just don't want to play this. Riding me like a bike throughout the entire night makes the process of looking for Nubs the most foreskin ripping process on the planet. Damn. Anyways, rocking a full chub, we can move on to the minigame. Master tells us that we have to prep the tables, but we instead choose to find a broom and teleport to hell and touch a weird looking thing instead. Afterwards, we do snap back to reality and do what she says in hopes that she steps on me with her sweaty feet. Jesus Christ, what am I writing? This entire video has just been like disgusting line after disgusting line. I hope you freaks are happy. Let's move on to night 4. I don't know where we are, but that really tall guy is watching us again. All leaned over looking ass, spring Bonnie looking ass. I personally want to know why we're always on the floor in these cutscenes. It's a little ridiculous. Anyways, on to the night section. Guys, why does it feel like I'm always being tortured? Night 4 introduces a threat that is literally so annoying, so teeth gritting, so fist clenching. It's honestly impressive how the devs of this game just continue to make each night progressively more and more frustrating every single time without fail. Night 4 introduces Fang Sr. We've barely been introduced to any characters so far, and already we're repeating ourselves, so that's not a good sign. Fang Sr. is quite literally, probably without a shadow of a doubt, the most annoying character from any FNAF game I've ever played. I'm seriously not exaggerating one bit. I'm completely serious. I unironically think I would rather play the entire Jolly series again than this game ever again. I'm so incredibly dead ass, it's not even funny. Fang Sr. has perfect synergy with Fang in literally the worst way imaginable. Fang Sr. can only attack from one entrance, but he defies all logic, and I hate him. He starts in parts and service. From there, he already starts doing whatever the fuck it is he wants. He'll go to either the entrance, the dining room, or the bar. 3 choices, who gives a shit? Then he'll either go to the ordering station or the kitchen. Finally, he'll hit the hallway corner, and that's when he does it. That's when he goes to your office door, just like Fang. However, unlike Fang, you can't shine your light at him. If even for a moment, a fraction of a second, even the smallest beam of light touches his eyes, you are completely fucked, and he'll make you arch your back like a college girl who left her long-term boyfriend to live the college experience. We all know what that's really code for. When Fang Sr. enters your office, you have to stand completely still. He'll stand in your office for literally 100,000 years before finally leaving. During this time, you can't open your cameras, you can't turn around, you can't flash your flashlight, you can't even turn your fucking head. You literally move even 1 inch and this guy will make you a part of the Me Too movement. So, if you haven't figured out what the two major problems are with this character, allow me to explain them to you. To start, let's talk about the obvious one. He sits in your office for so long that by the time he finally leaves, you'll have lost track of literally every other character, and there will probably be someone ready to be flashed, or Nubs will have made it into your vent. Wasn't fast enough for seniors. Was fucking my shit. He was fucking my shit up. Who knows? Who knows? That doesn't even matter anymore. And you can't even be good at this mechanic. And that's the most infuriating part. When Fang Sr. enters your office, you're basically just dropping to your knees and praying the game doesn't skull fuck you. Let's talk about the other glaring and much more frustrating issue with this character. We have to talk a bit more about Fang himself first. Tracking Fang really isn't necessary and is honestly not worth your time because it will leave you with more cameras you'll need to check when Melody is attacking. So it's much better to just quickly flash the vent and doorway every once in a while to check if Fang is there. But of course, now we have a character who, if we even flash for a millisecond, will kill us. So get ready to accidentally flash Fang Sr. over 12,000 times trying to beat this piece of shit. And we're only on night 4. It's going to get harder. Much, much harder. Like a shit ton harder. And not even skill-wise harder. Just dick-swinging Grandpa Fang limping his gimp ass into your room at random harder. During night 4's post-night minigame, we have to fill up cups because the customers are thirsty. I am personally thirsty for our boss, but I think I've made my stance on her objectively clear. Who cares about doing that? Touch whatever this thing is, go to the death world, touch this other thing I don't know the name of, finish filling the cups, and we can move on to night 5, aka Razor Blades in My Water Night. Night 5's cutscene has us yet again under a table in what appears to be parts and service. I think this robot on the floor in front of us is the character we've seen over the last few nights, but I can't be sure. Night 5 introduces nothing new, thank God. However, it does serve to be literally one of the most RNG-ridden, frustrating nights from any FNAF game I've ever played in my entire life. I would rather attempt post-shift 2 for an entire day. I cannot describe to you how much I did not enjoy this game. I almost feel bad constantly ripping on it, but to be fair, it kept constantly ripping my asshole. Since I don't have any new threats to bring up, and if I continue to shout I might go into cardiac arrest, I have nothing left to talk about aside from the post-night minigame. This time around we need to touch a barrel in the first room we're in. From there we touch the weird thing in the death area and then go to our future dungeon master. She tells us to bring the cake to the main room and we walk into the kitchen to do exactly that exactly then. Upon bringing the cake to the main room, both my wife and all of the children just stare at us. Upon talking to my owner, all she says is thanks, and the minigame abruptly ends. I don't want to tell you about the cutscene we see next. Just take a look. So yeah, that's actually just terrifying and one of the most disgusting and uncomfortable things I've seen in my entire life. The thought of hiding from one of these robots and it being intelligent enough to find you is unironically one of the scariest things of all time. And for all of the shit I've been giving this game throughout this whole video, I will say this cutscene is one of the most dread-inducing things I've ever seen in a FNAF game. So hats off for that. Oh yeah, one thing I should have mentioned that I just fucking didn't is that the only way you can get the post-night minigames is by finding a floppy disk during the night sections. So yeah, I'll just throw that in right here because I'm lazy. You're welcome. But with that, we can talk about night 6, by far the most interesting nights in this entire game. And yes, it does still make me pee blood. If you've done all the weird minigame blood butt touching, then a new character will be active on this night, that being Miss Willow. Miss Willow is an owl and acts as this game's boss fight night. And a boss fight she really is. Except instead of a fight to survive her, it's a fight to prevent myself from putting a certain metal object to my temple. Miss Willow is literally just a find them on the camera character. I'm not kidding. That's literally her only fucking mechanic. She'll say, find me, and you have to do exactly that. Except she does this a lot, in very quick succession, constantly, throughout the whole night. This is not gameplay. This is torture. If you fail to find her 3 times in a row, she'll randomly appear in any of the 3 entrances to your office, where you'll have to flash her to make her reset. Except the window of time to do this is so astronomically low, it might as well not even exist. I cannot describe to you how frustrating and bullshit this boss fight is. I hate it. I never beat it. I didn't get to do it in my playthrough over on my second channel, Dxtr Black, but I did attempt it while writing this video. And yeah, no, I'll pass, thanks. Fuck this night and fuck this game. After completing the boss fight, there's one more minigame to talk about. In it, all we have to do is follow Willow around the building. She talks some bullshit about a her, not explaining who that is. I don't care, guys. Here's all of the text she says in the cutscene. Read it if you give a shit. I don't care enough. I'm so done at this point. Afterwards, the minigame ends. Turning around in our seat, we see that Willow has somehow gotten into our house. Her face cracks open and 2 small hands grab it from the inside, splitting the face open and jump scaring us, which I'm praying to God just killed us right there on the spot. But even after that, we're still not done. No, this game needs to keep a chokehold on me for just a little bit longer. We get one final cutscene where we're back in the vent for some reason. We hear a woman crying and Willow appears in front of the vent again, and we wake up from a fucking dream. Are you literally ripping my scrotum off? A dream game? Really? Fuck you. Literally fuck you and fuck your entire face. I hate you. That's pretty much all Fang's Pizza and Theater has to offer. There is an additional mode called Golden Days, which, since we're here, I guess I'll quickly talk about it. Five Nights at Fang's The Golden Days is an older title in the Fang series. This appears to be just that game as a director's cut packed into this game as well. I never played it for myself, and I actually didn't even know this existed until doing research for this video. The version in this game consists of only one night and only has Fang, Faye, and Nubs. Except it only seems like Fang can move. He'll wander through the building before appearing in your vent. Just hold your flashlight on him and he'll fuck off. From watching Indie Fuel, my guardian angel, play this night is so slow and nobody even moved until like 4 a.m. So this just seems awful. The only reason I choose to mention this game is the minigame that takes place after you beat it. In it, you play as a large rabbit, maybe the one from the final cutscene, and you're in someone's house. You're holding something, but I can't quite tell what it is. But we walk out of the house and get surrounded by some bullies. They say we have rabbit ears. They say nobody loves nerds, which is literally just the biggest lie of all time. Ladies can confirm. They tell us to shut up and that they never want to see our face again, which tells me that this character is either a child that got infused with a rabbit suit, maybe, or it's just a kid wearing a rabbit suit. I have no idea. I don't even know any characters' names as to who this could be. And lucky me, this video is long enough, so I don't have to care. But with that, that's all Fang's Pizza and Theater has to offer. This is truly the most infuriating FNAF game I have ever played in my life. I truly do not believe I will ever play a game that actually makes me so unhappy again in my life. I remember filming this game and how miserable I got every time I had to boot it up. I'm so glad it's over. I'm happy I finally got around to writing this video so this game would stop haunting my nightmares, and I hope you guys enjoyed me getting mad about it. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Or do you think this game is actually the best FNAF game known to mankind? Let me know in the comments below. In my Freddy Files video, I asked you guys if you were to make a FNAF game, what would be the most important thing to consider while making it? And my favorite answer was this one by It Is Never Go Jover. They said literally every mechanic that makes me want to eat a pencil. So how about you just kick rocks, Buster Brown? What makes a game difficult? Is it puzzles, bosses, nerve control, or a mixture of all of those things? I think almost any answer to that question is a valid one. However, I think there's something all players, especially Five Nights at Freddy's players, can agree does not make a game difficult. RNG. Standing for random number generation, RNG is basically just when the game decides to go, and and make something happen in the game at complete random with no thoughts of balancing or user experience whatsoever. In a lot of games, RNG can be a good thing and add to the overall experience, whether that be contributing to grinding for a really good gear in a dungeon of an MMO, or contributing to a loot box if you're a degenerate and play Hoyoverse games. But something I think FNAF players can agree on is that RNG is almost never a good thing, and the game we'll be diving into today implements it in some of the worst ways of all time. Join me as we dive into the world of the Tubbyland Archives. Now, without further ado, let's jump in to Tubbyland Archives Act 1. The Tubbyland Archives begins with a cutscene. The camera pans around the building, showing the various rooms, and we listen to a quick phone call from the CEO of the company we will soon be working for. He tells us that we've gotten the job and that we'll meet with a guy named Joey, and he'll be teaching us what we need to do. The camera pans past two of the antagonists we will soon be introduced to, and oh my lord, do I need to talk about how awesome this game looks. These characters look terrifying. I love them, and I honestly feel like this game's menu screen is one of the best FNAF menu screens I've ever seen. The way the characters shake as they reach out for you, mixed with the unsettling background music, provides a very uncomfortable feel, which I think fits great into a FNAF game. Anyways, moving on to night 1, we're introduced to who I can only assume to be Joey. However, through in-game subtitles, we can see the game refers to him as 03. Not really sure why. The night 1 phone call is just about as uneventful as I'm sure you could have guessed. 03 explains the basics, and not much lore is mentioned at all. 03 tells us that the guy that worked before us was named Evan, but other than that, not much else is revealed. And while yes, I could describe to you how he describes what our job is, but it's kind of my job to tell you what our job is, so let's do that. There is only one threat that is activated on night 1, that threat being Poe. For those of you who are grown adults and don't know anything about the Teletubbies, Poe is the red one. However, before we can actually talk about Poe, we should talk about the general tools we have at our disposal. Obviously, we have cameras, but the cameras in this game have 3 unique functions. Okay, 1 unique function. I've seen the other 2. I'm just trying to be nice because apparently I'm way too negative in these reviews. Let's go over the 2 non-unique functions first. To start, we have our camera flashlight. Just like FNAF 2, it lights the camera up. Who would have imagined? Wow. However, the flashlight battery in this game that's displayed in the top corner of the camera actually goes down pretty fast. So that's why in my playthrough, which you can see on my second channel, Dxtr Black, it's very common for you to see me flash the light on a camera for a fraction of a second. Since as you play this game, you'll learn where to look for each of the animatronics, a super brief flash should really be all you need. The next familiar mechanic is an audio lure, except unlike most audio lures, it won't make you want to kill yourself by only working a handful of times before forcing you to stare at a reboot monitor for 300 years. I'll explain how the audio lure mechanic works when it becomes relevant. Before that, let's talk about the last mechanic in the cameras. The reboot? The shock. I don't really know what to call it. There's a button on the cameras that allows you to remotely turn off and on said camera. There's almost never a reason to turn a camera off, so I'm just gonna pretend like that doesn't even exist. But turning a camera on is very important because of one main mechanic this game has that just makes me smile from ear to ear. You see, that joke was funny because I lied. In the top corner of the screen, you'll also see a camera stability percentage. Throughout the night, this number will decrease, and each camera has its own dedicated percentage. When the percentage reaches 0, that camera will automatically shut off, and you'll have to go to said camera and turn it back on. This mechanic is in no way annoying by itself, but when mixed with a certain dickhead we'll talk about later, this will quickly become one of the main things in this game that makes you want to detonate a flash grenade next to an infant. You can also hide behind some curtains in your office, but that won't become necessary until a later night. Now, pivoting to talking about Poe. Something I'll hand to this game is that it does a really good job at making every character be a constant thorn in your side. No character can be forgotten about. No character can you just let your brain go on autopilot to deal with. You constantly have to be aware of each character, which is something I think is a very good thing in a FNAF game. Poe will do what most robots in FNAF games tend to do, wander around the building and make their way to your office. Something you'll notice about a lot of characters in this game is their ease of ability to juke you. Unlike most FNAF games where each character usually only has one main form of attack, Most of the characters in the Tubbyland archives can attack both of the doors in your office, and because of the way the building is set up, there are multiple opportunities for the characters to swap which side they're going to attack on, making it even more important for you to constantly be monitoring all of them. Poe is the only character in this game that is affected by the audio lure, thankfully. However, there is a very big problem with Poe that I will bring up towards the end of this video, but for now, Poe pretty much is just Springtrap. Don't let her get to your doors or she'll insert herself inside of you, and you can only lure her into rooms she's adjacent to. Ooh, I don't like that. Call it back this way, bro. Come here, please! Poe by herself is not a formidable foe, but will likely become the character you forget about the most later down the line. Of course, it wouldn't be a FNAF game without post-night minigames where all you do is walk around, now would it? Rest assured, Tubbyland Archives has those as well. However, there is something I want to mention about these minigames. The way they control is honestly really satisfying. The camera moves with the player, but it doesn't lock to them. It glides around their movements, which leads to a super satisfying feel. Not only that, but the art doesn't have that typical purposeful dog shit look to it. It looks like this could actually be a game inside of an arcade machine, and I think that's great. But what happens in the first minigame? Well, to start, we play as the green Teletubby, Dipsy. We're told to find Nunu, and once again, for those of you that know nothing about the Teletubbies, Nunu is this fucking vacuum that's alive, or something. After wandering around the building, we find Nunu in a closet and his eyes glow red, which means he's evil because duh, that's what red means. And we're told that Nunu was sleeping. Duh, that's why his eyes were closed, you moron. I can't believe the game is having to explain this to you. On night 2, we get another call from O3. He explains not a whole lot, basically just goes over the 2 new animatronics, but I feel like I can do a hell of a lot better than he can. He does bring up Nunu, the vacuum cleaner, and explains that the CEO worked on building him himself. He always told the workers to stay away from it because it was too dangerous. I find that a bit odd, and so does O3, but we're gonna not question it. It's just FNAF things, I suppose, right? Anyways, on to the 2 threats this night introduces, the previously mentioned Nunu and the yellow Teletubby, Lala. Lala is the real main antagonist of this game, at least she feels like it, as she is the character that without a doubt will require the majority of your attention throughout this game, and is the first major occurrence of painfully AIDS RNG throughout this experience. Lala is one of the few characters that can be seen on the cameras without the use of the flashlight since her eyes glow. She does the same thing that Poe does. She can attack both doors and has multiple points throughout the cameras where she can swap sides and fuck your day up. Generally, her mechanic is easy. Lala will never move backwards, so once she's at the entrance of one of your doors on the cameras, if you later check and she is no longer there, then you know she's about to attack you. And when she is, all you have to do is hide behind the curtains and she'll jump into the office to look for you. Yes. Yo, I would not want those things to grip my hips. I ain't not gonna lie. Them big fucking oven mitt hands, bro. But she does have the mind of a toddler and will quickly forget why she wandered into the office in the first place and promptly leave. Where Lala becomes incredibly ass-clenchingly AIDS is when we start to talk about what I'm going to call her final bait and switch. The 2 final cameras she will appear on before attacking are camera 1A and camera 1B. However, there is a camera in between that can serve as one final point for Lala to switch sides, that being camera 2A, the worst fucking camera in the whole game. When Lala is on either of her 2 kill cameras, when she has a successful movement opportunity, she will do one of 2 things. 1, she'll just prepare to enter your office, wherein you'll need to hide behind the curtains, or she can do the much more frustrating option, move into the bait and switch camera. When she's in this camera, she obviously won't be able to enter your office. However, when comparing this switch camera to the other one, it becomes a lot more infuriating. The other 2 switch cameras are 4A and 1B. This is the only other point in the cameras where the characters can switch attack sides. However, the difference between these cameras and the bait and switch cameras is that the bait and switch cameras have a camera in between. And because of this, when Lala is in the bait and switch camera and has a successful movement opportunity, she can enter any of the 2 kill cameras, even if it's the kill camera she just came from. This alone isn't a huge problem, But when we get into later nights and everyone is more aggressive and there's more characters active, in most cases, you would almost always rather have Lala just move into her attack phase so that she'll reset to camera 5A and you can focus on someone else for a bit. However, there will be many occurrences where Lala will just jump between her bait and switch cameras, leading to you need to spend way more time on her than you ever should have, which will end up getting you killed by either Poe or another character I'll mention later in the long run. The other character this night adds is the previously mentioned Nunu. Nunu, thankfully, isn't a normal attacking character. Nunu is actually in the office with you, and you can see him behind the curtains you go to hide in. He's just a preventative measure to stop you from hiding in the curtains all night. If you stay there for too long, he'll kill you. Pretty simple sugar. After beating night 2, we're tossed into another mini-game segment, this time playing as Poe. Once again, we have to go find Nunu. After a bit of exploring, we find him getting his clanker ass to work, filling up the custard machine to make some bomb-ass desserts that I personally will never eat because I'm not really a sugar type of guy. Moving on to night 3, we get yet another phone call from O3. He tells us that everyone who works in this building never feels like they're alone when they enter the building, and no shit, there are a bunch of murder robots always trying to fornicate with them, so that checks out. O3 expresses that he will be trying to look through some of the files later on to figure out what's going on, and if I were to guess, that's not gonna bode well for him. O3 also mentions another Teletubby, and of course, that character is the new threat on this night, that being the purple Teletubby, Tinky Winky. Tinky Winky is probably the least frustrating character throughout this whole game. Same shit as every other character. Go to your office, juke you along the way. Except the way to deal with Tinky Winky is different. We're told that he doesn't like high-frequency noises. Well, luckily for us, the flashlight on our cameras just so happens to make that correct frequency of noise to piss him off. He also makes a very noticeable sound cue on whichever camera he's on. So if he's ever in the wrong place, just hold the light on him and he'll move backwards. No problem whatsoever. The post-night 3 minigame has us play as Lala. Once more, we're tasked with finding Nunu. Spoiler alert, this is what we're gonna have to do in each of the minigame segments. After some searching, we find him taking out the trash. However, as I'm sure you could already see because you have eyes, the trash he's taking out definitely looks like flesh and blood, so that's just awesome now, isn't it? Night 4 gives us my favorite phone call in this entire game. Something I really need to point out is how amazing the voice actors in this game really did. The acting is nothing short of amazing. It never sounds like the characters are acting, it always just sounds so real.
It turns out I'm not crazy. There's something going on around here, and it's not good. I don't really know how much I can say over the phone. I mean, who knows who's listening, but I think I might be onto something. This whole company goes way deeper than I ever thought.
And that's what I think all good acting should be. You shouldn't even think that the characters are actors, just that they're characters. And I think this game does an almost perfect job at that. Moving on to what's actually said, O3 did some digging and explained that the entire company goes way deeper than he expected. He found some things that he probably wasn't supposed to see, but he never gets into explaining what. Before he does, the CEO comes to his office. They have a brief yet uncanny conversation. The CEO knows that someone had been looking at the company documents, and it's clear that he thinks O3 did it, which, to be fair, he did. O3 denies ever doing so because, of course, why would he admit that? And the CEO says that he's got his eyes on him. He asks O3 to come in the next night to help look for some of the documents, and O3, while confused as to why, agrees anyways. The CEO leaves the office and O3 quickly hangs up the phone. This night also introduces the final threat in this game, Dipsy. Dipsy is another character that you won't really have to focus on all too much. Dipsy will appear in your front office door. He has a few phases he can move through before you see him in his main attack phase, where he's fully leaned into your office. When you see him like this, all you have to do is hide. A very faint sound cue will play when he leaves, and you'll be able to come back out and continue. Not a very difficult character to deal with, but a character that does force you to pull the camera down every once in a while. And in a game where the camera is easily the most important tool, this isn't something you're gonna want to be doing very often. This is also the night where you'll really start to notice how difficult this game really is. The characters really start to move quickly on night 4, and the pressure present and nerve control required really starts to stand out. In the comments of my first episode of this game, which you can watch over on my second channel, Dxtr Black, I got several comments warning me about how hard this game really is, and upon reaching night 4, I finally really started to feel it. But nothing could prepare me for the complete bullshit I was about to go through come night 5. But before we can talk about night 5, we need to talk about the post-night 4 minigame. In it, we play as Tinky Winky and find Nunu cleaning up a spill, as the game puts it. This spill very clearly is blood, and I have my suspicions as to whose blood it could be, but I'll explain my thought process after we talk about night 5. Night 5's phone call is a doozy, to say the least. O3 explains that the CEO set him up. He came in the night the CEO asked and walked right into a death trap. He mentioned he found a box in a party room that smelled terrible. He found several documents. Reading them revealed everything. He explains that the entire building and business we're in now is a cover-up. But before he can tell us more, Nunu finds him and kills him in what I can only describe as one of the most uncomfortable phone calls I've ever heard. Shit. Nunu, no. Oh, are the... Okay, that was a pretty cool fucking phone call, dude. I can't even lie. That was actually badass. And I can only assume he is the owner of the blood that Nunu was cleaning up in the post-night 4 minigame. But now we get the displeasure of talking about night 5. Single-handedly, one of the most infuriating gameplay experiences I've ever had in my entire life. This is where the RNG gets atrocious, and where I find this game's biggest asshole, Poe. As I've already mentioned, Poe acts very similarly to Springtrap in FNAF 3, and if you know anything about FNAF 3, then you know the worst thing about it is the dreaded 1 in 7. For those of you who have played FNAF 3, that phrase probably just sent chills down the back of your spines. 1 in 7 refers to the 1 in 7 chance Springtrap has to completely fucking ignore your audio lure, and is single-handedly the reason why FNAF 3 is even as hard as it is, as it takes a system that would be built around skill and turns it into a game of, is Springtrap gonna fuck you or not? This is exactly what Poe does. At least, I'm pretty sure is what she does. There's no official documentation about her AI, and as far as I'm aware, there's no decompiling of this game to double check. But I'm almost positive she has the same mechanic. Maybe it isn't 1 in 7, but it's almost 100% 1 in something. Because if it's not a 1 in something, then that means that Poe moves around the camera so quickly that your audio lure doesn't even matter. I tried my absolute hardest, but I could not for the life of me beat night 5. I gave up, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. If my theory of Poe ignoring some of the sound cues is correct, then fuck trying to beat that night and just waiting for luck to be on my side. The time you have to wait to use the audio lure after using it is way fucking longer than in FNAF 3. And sure, you never have to reboot it, but that doesn't really matter when Poe moves at the fucking speed of the goddamn Roadrunner. Seriously, go watch my Night 5 playthrough on my second channel, Dxtr Black. It's almost laughable how quickly Poe gets to my office despite me using the audio lures at every single opportunity that I could. You could also just watch to see some salt since there's plenty of that, but like, goddamn, this night is hard. This game is fucking hard. I should have listened, but I was thinking, well, how hard could it possibly be? And the answer to that question is, I don't know. It's impossible to tell how hard the game is because the skill ceiling is capped by how lucky you get. So I don't even know how difficulty could be measured. But I need to relax a bit. Sure, I wasn't able to beat this game, but I know there are some people out there who were able to. And because of those people, indie fuel, that I'm able to finish talking about this game. So congratulations to all of you who put yourself through this horseshit torment. I appreciate you. The post-Night 5 minigame actually takes place before the Night 4 minigame. We play as Tinky Winky once again and actually get to see who, once again, I can only assume to be O3, dragging himself out of a room before all of the animatronics hold him down as Nunu kills him and he's left to die on the floor alone with no one to ever come and help him. We get our check for the week, but before we decide to piss off forever, our character begins to speak to himself. He wants to go back for one more night, to see if O3 is still alive, and if he isn't, he wants to get the documents that O3 mentioned so that his death wouldn't be in vain. Personally, if it was me, I don't care if O3 was my brother. He's dead as disco, and there would be no way in fuck I'd be going back there in a million years. But Parker, our player's name, decides to, and we get to jump into night 6, an experience I never got to see for myself, and I'm glad I didn't. As far as I'm aware, nothing new was added to night 6, just being a more difficult, more RNG-based fuckfest of a night, but after completing it, we move on to the post-night 6 minigame. This minigame is actually a minigame, not just a walk-around simulator. In this minigame, we have to find 10 of the documents in the basement, all while the animatronics patrolling you are trying to find us. If at any point they see you, you're dead because they're much faster than you are. So you have to strategically hide by staring at a fucking wall every once in a while whilst they pass, and eventually escape the building. I obviously never did this because I couldn't even beat night 5, let alone night 6, but even just watching somebody else complete this minigame, even this minigame looks really fucking hard, so I'm grateful that I never had to do it. But that's all Tubbyland's Archives Act 1 has to offer. Yes, I did say Act 1, which would imply that there are more on the way. In fact, Act 2 does actually have a Game Jolt page, but with no updates on said page for over 2 years, who's to say if it will ever actually come out or not? I personally really hope it does, because the story of this game actually seems intriguing to me, which is odd for a FNAF game. Overall, the Tubbyland Archives can prove to be an incredibly frustrating, luck-stricken experience. However, I don't think that can fully take away from how amazing this game both looks and how it is mechanically if you can put aside the 2 major RNG points that it has. The story is mysterious and is everything I need to want a sequel, and I really hope it does come. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think that the Tubbyland Archives is nothing but reimagined slop of a FNAF fan game that came out years ago? Let me know in the comments below. In my Those Nights at Rachel's video, I asked you guys what your biggest FNAF hot take was, and my favorite answer was this one by an avid panda lover. They said the trope of, quote, employee killed children and that's why the animatronics are hostile, end quote, has been completely overdone by every fan game, and I totally agree. I would love to see a fan game story where child murder isn't the key and major plot point, and honestly, it almost seems like that's the direction the game we covered today is taking.
Alright guys, the slander is ridiculous. I do not have a Coke can wiener, and I can prove it. I had a lovely fan redraw me. Boom. New art. How does it feel being wrong? You gonna cry? Yeah, you gonna piss your pants because I don't have a penis? Yeah, I was castrated. What are you gonna do about it? Anyways, Jaja, thank you so much for drawing these new poses. I think they look amazing, and I hope all of you get a kick out of them too, and I stop getting comments about my character Skags having an absolute sledgehammer penis. I just had to address that. Go follow her on Instagram, link in the description. Let's get to the video. If you've ever played any of the games from the Souls series, you'd know that a lot of the time the bosses, while being incredibly difficult, tend to be able to be broken down into pattern recognition, and once you understand a boss's pattern, beating them becomes much easier. The FNAF game I'll be talking about today feels the same way. Today, I'll be talking about Mary's Arcade, a FNAF fan game that, in its own creator's words, is, quote, a short, simple FNAF game that wasn't overly dependent on story, avoids using FNAF mechanics like doors and masks, and doesn't rely on randomness or luck, just complete skill, end quote. It was that final part about no randomness or luck that really grabbed my attention, since luck and RNG is the main reason I end up disliking FNAF games. 1020 mode in FNAF 2 is the prime example, but of course, fan games are guilty of this as well. I'm excited to dive into Mary's Arcade. I'm sure there will be no complaining from my end at all, and I'll be totally calm the entire time and will never go feral. Grab a snack and a drink, there's a lot I want to talk about. Mary's Arcade begins with us naming the Night Guard, something that I haven't seen other FNAF games do before. The only reason I'm mentioning it here is because the name shows up on the menu and on your paychecks. It's important for me to say that for these videos. I don't typically use my own footage. I usually borrow footage from full playthroughs and challenge runs from people like Toy Bonbon or Shooter. Rest assured, I do play the games I make videos about. I just use other people's footage for the review videos. Just had to get that out of the way. The gameplay loop of Mary's Arcade is honestly super refreshing and unique in comparison to other FNAF games. There are only 3 animatronics, but I promise you that's all this game needs in order to keep the game very difficult. And I promise you, when I tell you this game is hard, this game is really fucking hard. So here's how it works. In your camera system, you have 2 important buttons, your PA button and your buzzer button. I'll start with the buzzer button. When you press the buzzer, it will shock the camera you are currently looking at. If an animatronic is on that camera, they will be locked in place until the buzzer finishes, I don't know, buzzing? What do you want from me? Then afterwards, they will continue on their path. The PA button does something pretty cool. It's somewhat similar to the Balloon Boy call from Five Nights at Freddy's 3. If you use the PA call on a camera that an animatronic is about to go into, they will immediately go into that camera. You can't make animatronic go backwards through cameras, only forward. You might be asking yourself, in what way is that even useful? And the answer is honestly pretty cool. When an animatronic reaches your door, their eyes will light up, letting you know they're there. You will then have to open your camera quickly, select the camera on the opposite side of the office, and use the PA button to lure them through your office to the other side. Now that might lead you to have another question. If you just lure them to the other door, wouldn't they just attack you from that door? And the answer is no. I can't find a very good reason to justify why this makes sense, so we're not even gonna try. But out of the 2 animatronics that attack from your left and right doors, they have movement patterns similar to animatronics from other FNAF games. Mary, the pink wolf, or fox? I don't really know, I think she's a fox. Anyways, she'll move clockwise through the cameras since the building is basically just a big circle. Rascal, the raccoon animatronic, will move counterclockwise around the building. They will never, under any circumstance, turn around and start moving in the opposite direction. They will only ever move forward through rooms. So when you pull one of them through your office, they will have to make a full rotation around the building before being able to attack you at your door again. Are you following along? Great, you get a medal or a cookie. I hope you're allergic to cookies, and you die! Rah! 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 Now I need to mention the only part of this game that I think is a negative. Cooldowns on your door lights. You'll notice that after using the buzzer or the PA button, that a bar will start filling up underneath the button. This is a cooldown for those buttons, and this prevents you from spamming them, which would obviously break the game and make it far too easy. Here's where the problem comes around. Mary and Rascal move at the speed of fucking sound. Sonic type shit. And on later nights when they're both active, the cooldowns become a huge problem. Because once you use the PA button on one of them, the other will reach your office well before your PA cools down. So, what's the remedy for this? Your door lights. In addition to using the buzzer to stall animatronics in place, using your door light when an animatronic is in the doorway will also stall their movement. I will note that the lights are meant to give you an extra 5 to 10 seconds for your PA to cool down, and not meant for you to halt an animatronic when your PA is basically empty. While an animatronic is at your door, they still have a timer for when they'll move into your room, whether you're flashing them or not. And if you're flashing them when that timer runs down, the lights to the building will flicker out and you'll lose the night. If you're easily frustrated, this game is probably not for you. On night 1, only Mary is active. With one animatronic, this game is a cakewalk. But this night is really just meant to give you an understanding of how the mechanics work, and it's also where we're told that the night will pass along faster if the cameras are not up. This gives us an incentive to not be looking at the cameras, but as you'll soon find out, looking at the cameras all the time is going to be the most valuable asset in this game. Night 2 is where Rascal becomes active, and the game actually starts to become a challenge. Still, this night is really easing you into dealing with 2 animatronics at one time, so beating it is fairly easy. On this night, there's a large emphasis placed on your buzzer, because it becomes incredibly important with 2 active animatronics. Night 3 is where this game really amps up in difficulty. You'll notice that Rascal moves much faster than Mary does, which can pose a small problem when it comes to balancing their locations, but be ready because it only goes from 10 to 100 after this night. But before this night ends, you get to see one of the coolest things I've ever witnessed in a FNAF game.
Power supply low. Powering down.
Was that not the fucking coolest shit you've ever seen in your life? A scripted cutscene that makes you think you lost? It's so cool. And I think the only reason why it left so many people, including myself, as shocked as it did, was because it completely breaks the Five Nights at Freddy's norms. I'm sure everyone who's played FNAF has had a moment where the clock strikes 6 a.m. in the middle of a jump scare animation. It's a rare occurrence, yet it somehow still happens to most of us. And this game takes that concept and creates its own cutscene out of it. It was this moment while playing this game that made me decide I needed to make a video about it. But now we move on to Night 4, aka Poop City. Night 4 introduces the final animatronic, Scarlet the deer, or a doe. Fawn? I don't know, it's a deer. Scarlet does something totally different from the other two animatronics. She is not affected by your PA system or your buzzer, meaning she'll truck right through the building however and whenever she pleases. How do you stop her? Remember when I said that not looking at the cameras makes the night go faster? Yeah? In order to stop Scarlet, you have to stare her ass down on the cameras. Life's great, dude. It's awesome, honestly. Scarlet begins on the stage like all the other animatronics do, and she'll follow either Mary or Rascal's path. She'll continue in that direction until she reaches your office, where she'll then attack from the door in the middle of the room, which means you can't use your door lights to stall her either. So instead, you must find her on the cameras and stare at her. Once you do this for long enough, which takes around 3 seconds, but trust me, feels like way longer, especially when some fucker is at your door. But once you look at her for long enough, she'll move backwards 1 camera, and then you can switch to that camera and continue to push her back until she is at the top of the map. Note, you can't make her go back on stage, so the camera right next to it is as safe as you're gonna get. Keeping Scarlet away doesn't get too stressful until you have Mary or Rascal sitting at your door, and you have to stop flashing them to pull your camera up to keep her away. But now, we get to touch on Night 5. And if Night 4 was Poop City, Night 5 is Poop Universe. Oh my god, Night 5. It's very important that I answer a specific question now. The Game Jolt page for Mary's Arcade states that this game does not use RNG and is pure skill. Is that statement true? The answer is yes, but I promise you, when Night 5 comes around, it will feel like complete RNG. But it's not, okay? It's not. I promise. This game is not so much a horror game as it is a puzzle game. Literally everything that takes place during the nights are scripted. That includes where animatronics start, when they move, and where they move. Speaking of where they start, on Night 5, Mary starts about 3 cameras away from your door, and Rascal starts about 2 cameras away from your door, while Scarlet is on stage. Immediately, right out of the gate, you're at an enormous disadvantage. If you do nothing within the first 10 seconds, Rascal will already be at your door. So you might think to just send him through, but almost directly after, Mary will be at your door, and uh-oh, you just used your PA. Guess it's time to kill myself. So then you think, okay, here's the strat. The moment the night starts, I'm gonna buzz Rascal and let Mary hit my door. I'll send her through and then stall Rascal with the light, which should give me just enough time to send him through before the lights go out. But uh-oh, fucker, you forgot about Scarlet, and now she's in your asshole. Okay, same strategy, except this time, after sending Mary through, we find Scarlet and send her back to the starting position, but oh shit! Rascal's at the door, so opening my cameras to move Scarlet now becomes super risky, and I'm fucked in the butthole again. Night 5 of Mary's Arcade is the bane of my existence, the piss in my pants, and the shit in my britches. It took me over 2 hours of attempts to figure out the pattern of this night's puzzle. Again, everything is the exact same every night. Literally no RNG in the timings. So I started to develop a strategy. I needed to figure out exactly how Scarlet worked, and I'm pretty damn sure that I have. So, the night begins and Scarlet is in her start location. On night 5, she will start by going left, the same side that Rascal goes. I know that my timing needs to be tight and precise, so my plan is to buzz Rascal on start immediately, let Mary through, and stall Rascal at the door with the light until my PA system is ready to then let him through. Since I have to be in the bottom right corner camera to let Rascal through, I need to make sure that Scarlet will be there, so that the moment I open the camera to let Rascal through, I will retroactively immediately push Scarlet away from my door. But we just established that she's going left, so what do we do? Well, if you push Scarlet to the main starting room, she will begin to attack the opposite side. So in night 5, she begins by going counterclockwise. So if before Rascal reaches my door, but after I let Mary through, I push Scarlet back to the main room, she will then begin to move clockwise. This gives me time to stall Rascal while she moves. However, while stalling Rascal, I will have to make one risky move. If I leave her totally unanswered, she will kill me before my PA system refills, so I have to push her back at some point. Now, one might think if you push her back, she'll start going in the wrong direction, and we've already established that I want her to be in the bottom right corner camera by the time I send Rascal through. But something I found out about Scarlet: you can push her back as much as you want, but she won't switch directions unless you push her back to the main room. Meaning that if I sit on the bottom right corner camera in preparation for luring Rascal, I can temporarily stop flashing him with the light to pull up the camera and push Scarlet back into the kitchen camera and quickly go back to flashing Rascal. This will give my PA system just enough time to refill before Rascal's door timer runs out, allowing me to push Rascal through, and then push Scarlet back to the main room. You might be thinking now, wow, that took way more thinking than any game I've ever played in my entire life. But then you look at the time and realize that it's only 1 a.m. I have to figure out timings like that for the next 5 in-game hours. This right here is why this game took me so fucking long to beat. This scripted bullshit makes me want to get mauled by a bear. I would honestly rather have RNG because this just isn't fun. It doesn't feel like skill because each night is identical. At least with FNAF 2 10/20 mode, I know that I just got unlucky with Toy Bonnie and that next time I could just get lucky and win. But not with Mary's Arcade. Mary's Arcade is nothing but trial and error, spending 30 minutes figuring out a pattern, die, spend another 10 minutes solving the new problem, die, do it again and again and again until you realize that fucking 2 hours have passed and you've only solved up to 4 a.m. with a goddamn night. And then I get the displeasure of talking about 5 a.m. Oh, 5 a.m. You big, stinky, fat, smelly, sweaty, sticky, ugly, stupid, dumb, idiotic, brain-dead, moronic bitch. Right at the finale of 5 a.m., all of the cameras go completely out. You can't look at them. You're no longer able to see anything on the cameras, and it really comes down to you versus Scarlet. Scarlet, if unanswered, will make it to your office before you hit 6 a.m. every time without fail. But how exactly are you supposed to stop her if you can't see the cameras, you ask? I have no fucking idea. It was ironically sheer luck that I didn't die to her on my final run. My idea was that even though I couldn't see her, she was still there, meaning that if I knew where she was before the cameras went out, I could still land on the camera she was just on, wait for the camera to flicker letting me know I pushed her back, then continue to push her back to the main room and just camp that camera and wait to win, since Mary and Rascal showing up during the game's final desperation to keep me here was very, very uncommon. But there would be runs where I would do this and still miraculously die to Scarlet. I have no fucking idea where she was. I had no strategy, no puzzle to solve, no clues to go off of. Have you ever tried to put together a 100-piece jigsaw puzzle without looking at it? Play Mary's Arcade Night 5, 5 a.m. After a few attempts of giving it a try, you'd be unzipping your pants and pulling your wiener out at the thought of attempting the jigsaw puzzle. I'm dead ass serious. I do not know how I beat this night. I could not replicate what I did. I watched multiple other people beat this night, and I didn't pick up on any patterns. I literally have no conceivable idea what I was expected to do at this point. I really hope someone in the comments could tell me what the intended route was, because I'm honestly so fucking confused. But after beating night 5, the game is done. And so is this video. Psych, you fucking idiot. There's a challenge night. Nightmare mode. Fuck. I didn't beat it. No, I didn't even put in an attempt. The moment I saw Nightmare mode on my title screen, I uninstalled the fucking game. I could not even begin to handle the mental anguish that would fall upon me as a consequence of trying that. No thank you, I'm good. But lucky for us, there is a custom night that introduces some new characters. Kipper, Dipper, and Martin. Kipper and Dipper are canonically Mary and Rascal's kids. Their mechanic is really easy. When you see them in your doorway, flip up your camera and flip it back down. That's it. Since they look like Mary and Rascal, I think the goal was to get you to think they were Mary and Rascal and cause you to turn the lights on, killing you. But it really isn't that hard to tell the difference. Martin is also very easy. Martin will spawn on any camera at random. All you have to do is find him and stare him down until he temporarily goes away. Easy. There's also these little random puppets that show up in front of your face, and you'll have to boop their noses to make them go away. I don't really understand the point of them, but I guess I'll go with it. Props to Frogger and Shooter for actually beating this shit show of a custom night. I'm well aware others have beaten it, but Frogger was the first victor, and I just like watching Shooter's content. So congrats, guys. I don't know why you did this to yourself. I'm sure that the anguish and the pain of doing this will surely be retroactively laid off on your future wife and children. But that's Mary's Arcade. There's technically a death minigame that plays sometimes upon a loss, but the creator of the game said there's not really a storyline to this game like most other FNAF games have, so I don't think diving into it is super necessary. Let me know what you guys think about Mary's Arcade in the comments below. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. In the last video, I asked you all if you thought Five Nights at Candy's 4 would ever come out, and if you thought it would be good. My favorite answer is this one from That Unlucky Gamer. They said they thought it would be like a Duke Nukem Forever type situation, where people waited a really long time for its release, only for it to be a bag of dicks. While I personally have hopes that the game will be good, I personally don't believe we'll ever get it. As far as I'm aware, we've gone 2 years without an update, so my hopes of it coming out aren't super high. I've been Dxtr, and I'll see you all in the next video. See ya!